Everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is John Campea, and everything's going wrong already today. Technical issues all over the place. My name is John Campea. Welcome to my YouTube channel, and this is Open Mic. Now, what is Open Mic? Well, I'm glad that you asked. See, every day on the John Campea Show, Monday through Friday, except a couple days this past week, we didn't have a John Campea Show on Thursday or Friday. We normally go through a lot of stuff, and we save the second half of the show for live questions. But here on the weekends, that's all we do, is we just take your live questions. And that is what we are here to do today. We have a lot of questions about a lot of different things. But obviously, I mean, the thing that has come up most in the last 24 hours, obviously, is the surprising news of the passing of Chadwick Boseman. I had the opportunity to meet Chadwick Boseman once or twice. I mean, once was at I think the first time I had a chance to meet was at the Black Panther premiere. What was surprising, I think, to most of us, surprising and infinitely impressive, was not only did we not know he was sick. I mean, obviously, there's going to be a lot of conversation, a lot of talk about the fact that, you know, a couple months ago, he put out that video about something else and he was like really thin and some people were speculating he was sick. A lot of people thought he was just, you know, preparing for a role, kind of like, you know, how Christian Bale did and 50 Cent did to really thin down, or obviously there was more to it than that. So we were all really surprised to hear about the passing of Chadwick Boseman. A few moments after the shock of it, though, you couldn't help but be hit when you realized he'd been battling for 4 years with this condition. Although it sounds odd to say, I get it, I know, but a few moments after the shock of it and the surprise of hearing of his passing, at least I found myself hit with this wave of being really impressed. Not just that this guy, knowing what he was battling, continued to push on with the work that he had done. And when you hear him interviewed, you have to understand, and you can't escape the knowledge that he saw a lot of the jobs he was being given, a lot of the roles he was being given as been important roles to do. Whether it's representing Black Panther, or whether it's being in Da 5 Bloods, or being whatever, he pushed on. And he was working and battling and fighting and never gave up for a moment. And also impressive in this, there was a part of me last night that I remember thinking at some point in the evening, man, I kind of wish for very selfish reasons, I kind of wish they had let us know that he was sick, so that we as a fan base, as a community, as a world, could express what his work has meant to us while he was still here. Right? I admit that was one of the thoughts, a very selfish kind of thing, but I admit that. I remember there was a moment that I thought, man, I kind of wish they did let us know while he was still here, so we could have poured out what his work meant to us while he was still here. But then I thought about it more, and I thought he never wanted that to be what we were focused on, clearly. He didn't want our focus to be on what his battle was, because his battle was his. He didn't want that. He wanted our focus to be on the work. And while since I really first became aware of Chadwick Boseman as a performer back around 2010, 2011, I've always respected his work greatly. We'll talk about that in a minute. But when I really let that sink in about the fact that he chose to keep it private, quiet, he didn't want the focus to be on him. He wanted the focus to be on the work. He wanted to keep working as much as he could. He wanted to keep putting out this art that would become immortal. He wanted to do all that. I got to tell you, I sat for a moment and thought about what an impressive man. What an impressive man. Great actor, but what an impressive man. And that's what hit me. You know, we never got the chance to get a huge filmography from Chadwick Boseman. I'll tell you what, I first became aware of Chadwick Boseman, like I said, back in 2010, 2011, because one of the co-hosts of my show, Erin Cummings, she had a show on ABC called Detroit 187. I think she's, there's Erin there. She had a show called Detroit 187, and Chadwick Boseman appeared on the show. I think that was probably the first time I really took notice of Chadwick Boseman. Then when I really got to know, okay, this dude's name's Chadwick Boseman, was the movie 42, the Jackie Robinson. Now look, I'm going to tell you up front here. I didn't love the movie 42 because I didn't think it quite did the legacy of Jackie Robinson justice. But if you guys had been watching me since those days when I put up my review for this, I was extremely impressed with this Chadwick Boseman kid. You know, I was really impressed. And it became kind of a theme. Chadwick Boseman, a good part of his career, if you look beyond T'Challa, he spent a good part of his career bringing to life for a new generation these important, iconic figures that this generation had never really had brought to life for them before. One of which was Jackie Robinson. And so I became very aware of Chadwick Boseman. But the next one he did is what made me a big Chadwick Boseman fan. And that was when he played James Brown in Get On Up. Now, this is a movie I particularly loved. And if you guys remember back then, I talked about it. And Tate Taylor was the director of this film. Tate Taylor, who also went on to do one of my favorite movies of the past bunch of years, The Help. I love that movie. Even though it gets some bad rap today, I don't care. I unabashedly love that movie. And I thought Get On Up was great. And it was this Chadwick Boseman dude bringing another iconic figure to life for a new generation. Now, fast forward a little bit more, and he did it again. Now, after he became T'Challa, fast forward a little bit more. This was a movie, Marshall, which also starred Josh Gad. This was a movie that flew under a lot of people's radars. I think because everybody was all caught up that Chadwick Boseman is Black Panther, right? But again, he brought to life a really important historical figure for a new generation who maybe some had never heard of or didn't really know much about. And he did it again. He did it again. I remember going back to when it was announced that Chadwick Boseman was going to be Black Panther. And for you guys, this was in the AMC days. And again, for you guys who used to watch me back then, you probably remember this. While a lot of people understandably were like, Chadwick who? Because he had done 42, he'd done Get On Up, but he wasn't a household name by any stretch of the imagination. But he had hit my radar. And when they announced that Chadwick Boseman was going to be Black Panther, I was over the moon. Because I was like, you got to understand, listen, I know most of you hadn't seen Get On Up, and not a lot of people had seen 42, but this dude is special. As an actor, this dude is special. And I was very, very excited that they got this guy. He was going to come into the comic book movie world. He was coming into the MCU. And I was there at the special Marvel presentation that was held live at the El Capitan Theater in Hollywood. When Kevin Feige came on stage, they brought out, Chadwick Boseman, and you had Chris Evans and you had Robert Downey Jr. on each side of them. They were talking about Civil War, and they were each pulling on one arm of Chadwick Boseman. It was just such a great theatric. You know what I mean? It was such a great theatric. And then, of course, he was Black Panther. And while people like Jackie Robinson, people like James, people like Marshall were real historical figures that he brought to life for people, you might be able to argue that for today's day and age, he then brought to life maybe his most important cultural figure yet, which was the fictional character of T'Challa. yes, Black Panther went on to become the first comic book movie in history to get nominated for Best Picture at the Academy Awards, which is extremely significant. But it was the cultural importance of that role. It was the cultural importance of that movie. It was the cultural importance and impact of Black Panther that had its widest reaching scope. As you had entire demographics of our culture, like for the first time expressing their now connectedness to this world, their connectedness now to this big cultural phenomenon of the comic book movie and stuff like that. And we would see things like school buses filled with kids being brought in to see Black Panther and things like that. The cultural significance of what Black Panther was, especially when you consider that at the time, I can't remember how many movies into the MCU we were. We were 18, 19, something like that, somewhere around there, movies into the MCU. And every single one of them, all 16, 17 in a row, or 18 in a row it had been before Black Panther came out, every single one of them, white male lead, which, look, it's fine, it's those characters, whatever. But in that world, to now bring in Black Panther, it was incredibly significant. And the significance of which even I can't completely understand and grasp, as well as some other people who really could. And so it was a culturally important role that he played. And what he brought, what Chadwick Boseman was able to bring to a lot of people, through not just another great MCU character that added so much to the MCU, but the cultural importance as well. It's not something we should overlook or think or think to just dismiss. It was very real for a lot of people. To lose a talent like that, who was so impressive, who was so good at his art, who helped bring to life so many of these figures, whether it was Jackie or James or Marshall or T'Challa, is something that a lot of performers and actors can only dream of ever doing if they had a 90-year-long career. And adding to that, of course, is the shock of not knowing that it was time. Now, look, I know in the coming days, there's going to be a lot of discussion about what does the MCU do now? And for the most part, I'm going to save that conversation for a couple of days. I'm going to save most of that conversation about what does the MCU do now. Most of that we're going to save till Monday. You know, we're going to give us all a couple of days. It's totally natural to ask the question because, you know, I was in the live chat with a few people earlier and I heard some people saying, you know, some people are saying they shouldn't do T'Challa anymore. They should write him off. I've heard some people say we shouldn't even talk about what the MCU does now. And I said, what I mentioned in the live chat was, I said just before the show started, you know, I think it's perfectly natural for us when we lose somebody to ask, what's the effect of us losing that person? What happens as a result of us losing that person? And I don't find that to be a disrespectful question. I think the question itself is a testimony to how impactful that person was. I think people asking the question, I don't think that's disrespectful to ask that question. I think that's a testimony to how impactful that person was. Because guess what? Whenever I go, people aren't going to be asking, what does the internet do now? Because I'm a nobody, so it doesn't really matter. But I mean, the very fact that I think a lot of people would ask the question now, oh my gosh, what does the biggest property in the history of Hollywood do now without Chadwick Boseman? I think the very fact that we even feel the need to ask that question is a testimony to how much of an impact Chadwick Boseman had. Like I said, for the most part, I'm going to reserve most of my thoughts on what does the MCU do now until Monday. You know, Rob and I will talk about that more on Monday. But I will say this. Let me throw this out there just now for a moment. Okay? There are a number of people, and this happens all the time when a celebrity passes away. I am personally seeing a bunch of people online saying they need to write out Black Panther. It would be disrespectful to continue to do Black Panther and blah, 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 blah. And I will say this, you know my position on this. I disagree with that. And I disagree with that for a couple of reasons. One of which is a smaller reason. You know, when Stan Lee passed away, the creator of a lot of these MCU characters that we watch and know and love, when Stan Lee passed away, nobody said, oh, don't make any more movies about the characters that he created. Don't make any more of those movies. No, because we know that what he created had become so important. We never even stopped to say, oh, we shouldn't make any more MCU movies because that's disrespectful to Stan Lee. We never said that because we knew that what Stan had created, it was a celebration of Stan Lee to continue with what he had created. It was tribute to Stan Lee to continue on making movies of the characters he created. You know, when Richard Harris died, one of our great actors, when Richard Harris died, and of course he was playing Dumbledore at the time, nobody stopped and said, well, you can't use Dumbledore anymore in the Harry Potter movies. You got to write out Dumbledore. You got to come up with something and write Dumbledore out because it would be disrespectful to Richard. No, everybody knew that Richard Harris was part of something of creating this massive cultural phenomena. Harry Potter was already big in the books, but bringing it to the movie screen just took it to another level. And Richard Harris was one of the reasons that this Professor Dumbledore became a household name to people. And it was important for that to carry on. It was important partially because of what Richard Harris did. And I remember when they were talking about recasting for Dumbledore, they said, this is how we honored Richard Harris, by doing a damn good job. We got to continue doing a damn good job with this character because we owe that to Richard Harris. And I believe when you're talking about Black Panther, like I said a little bit earlier, you're not just talking about another comic book character. You're talking about a character that has incredible cultural importance. And I don't believe personally, and this is only my personal belief, I don't believe the way you honor Chadwick Boseman is by taking this character that has become so important to so many people on such an entertainment and cultural levels and say, oh, we're not going to do it anymore. I just don't believe for a second that's how you honor Chadwick Boseman. I believe you honor Chadwick Boseman by taking now this character that is so beloved and so important to so many people and saying, we now have an obligation to do a damn good job with this character, to build on and stand on the shoulders of the contributions that Chadwick Boseman made to it and move forward as a way to honor Boseman. But that's just my opinion, and that's something we can talk about more, probably a little bit later at another time. Chadwick Boseman was not like a Carrie Fisher who had been with us our entire lives. His career was a relatively short one, but his gift was something he shared with us. And in the sharing, we got to see memorable performances with important historical and fictional characters brought to life in a socially relevant way that impacted a lot of people and gave us all a lot of joy. And all I can say is I will miss seeing him on screen. I know a lot of us will miss his incredible work. And I think I can speak for most of us when we say our thoughts, prayers, and condolences to those who personally knew Chadwick Boseman, to those who personally worked with him, to those closest to him, his loved ones, his friends, and his family. Our loss that we feel as his fans is finite compared to the loss that those people feel. And we recognize that. And Yeah, it's a sad day. Now, listen, guys, I know there's going to be a lot of us. There's going to be a lot of people here that's going to want to talk more about Chadwick Boseman, and we will get to those. We have a lot of questions to get to. The first bunch of questions that we have were sent in before we found out about the passing of Chadwick Boseman, so we're going to get through those first. And then once we get through those, we're going to get to all the questions that you guys have sent in, questions, comments, that you guys are sending in since the news last night. So so I just wanted to give you that heads up. I'm not prioritizing any of these, and we're just going to go through them in the order that they came. So the first bunch we've got here will be about other things, and then we will get to the stuff that you guys are sending in about Chadwick Boseman. So that's just my thoughts, my initial impressions, my initial reaction. And it's a sad day. If you're an entertainment fan, it's a sad day. So anyway, let's now jump over and start getting to the things that you guys want to talk about. And I never bothered. I was so distracted by what I was doing. I never got my my thing squared up here properly. Let me get the questions here squared up properly. All right, we're going to start things off here with Let me get this. MNHB 2001 writes, "Hey, John and Rob, this is from a few days ago. I just saw Tenet. There was a moment where my jaw was on the floor. I sat on the edge of my seat, gripping my armrest while adrenaline coursed through my veins, and I was reminded, damn it, it's great to be watching movies again." And there was one that came after that, whereas he said one of two, but there wasn't another one after that. I myself went to the movie theater. I drove 3.5 hours. Me and my buddy Soul, Rob couldn't go. Me and my buddy Soul drove 3.5 hours to go to Las Vegas so I could go watch New Mutants. And I got to tell you, I was very impressed. You guys have probably seen the video I put up about it. I was very impressed with the movie theater and their safety procedures and what they had done. Very, very impressed. And I had a great time. The movie wasn't great. I enjoyed watching it. Hey, it is what it is. I enjoyed watching it, but I had my problems with it. Again, my review for New Mutants is up. You can go see that. It's just a quick review, but I'll talk more about it on Monday. But it was great to be back in the theaters again. It was very, very great to be back in the theaters again. All right, Raymond Verrata writes, "Hopefully the movie house experience will be back soon with New Mutants. I still have my AMC Stubs card." There you go. I still have my AMC Stubs card. I was wondering what to do with it if it goes the way of the Blockbuster video card. Will they still honor it? You and Rob stay safe in Vegas. Yeah, no, I don't. AMC Prime and Stubs, that's not going anywhere until AMC dies, unless AMC as a company dies. But they fully plan on relaunching, getting the Stubs and Prime memberships going again. I don't want it running yet because I don't want to be paying my monthly fee if I can only watch one movie a month right now. So they are still keeping it frozen, and I'm glad they're doing that. But no, as long as AMC is around, there will be Prime because they make money on Prime. They spent a lot of money investing in getting that going, so that will be around. All right. Let's keep things going here. Where are we now? Sorry here, guys. Okay. Let's see here. Dr. Panders writes, and sends in like a $50 tip. Thank you so much for that, Doctor. Thank you for supporting the channel on that level. Hey, John, I just want to thank you for everything you do every day. My grandfather passed away in April. My condolences, man. I'm sorry to hear that. And we used to watch your show together every day. Thank you, man. It's been a little rough coming back to the show, but hearing you guys talk brings back memories. Dude, again, first and foremost, condolences to the loss of your grandfather. And you honor me by telling me you and your grandfather used to watch it together. I'm always floored when people write in and say, me and my brother watch it with you, or me and my girlfriend, or me and my wife, or me and my son, or, stuff like that. So, dude, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that memory. And again, our condolences. I think I speak on behalf of the entire fan community here when I say our condolences to you and your loss. And thank you for being here. And thank you for sharing that memory, man. This is very special to me. So thank you so much for that, man. All right. Dr. Panders also writes, so thank you again for everything, John. Keep bringing that damn filthy. Well, thank you very much, man. And, we talk a lot about the beauty of movies and the movie fandom and what it is for us. And the fact that it can really be a rejuvenating, healing respite for us. And it's amazing to continue to see testimonies like that. So thank you for that, man. I really appreciate it. All right, Jason Ashcroft writes, Thanks for all you do, John, and the support. I just started my final year for my undergrad in film school. That is awesome. And debating getting my master's in film production. What are your thoughts on that? I know that the biggest factor is the drive and desire, but having that extra training from a master's program could prove beneficial. Thoughts? Also, I started my own film website just to review for fun. It's University Film Review, where I just post my thoughts on movie releases. Thanks for inspiring and all that you do. Well, thank you so much for that, Jason. That's awesome on you, man. That is awesome on you to just listen. It is never a bad idea to improve yourself, right? Like, so here's the, in asking, do I think you should get another degree? I think if you are in the position to do so, absolutely. Let me share with you a little bit of a personal story. My wife, Anne, already had 3 degrees, right? Including a master's degree. And about 2 years ago, she and I were discussing, she was thinking about getting another master's degree. And we debated it. It ain't cheap. So we discussed and debated it. But at the end of the day, I said, look, it'll hurt a little bit right now. But the reality is having those credentials and having that experience and getting that knowledge and having that on your resume is going to benefit you moving forward tenfold from what it's going to cost us to do it now. Because there was a cost, financial and time. And we were, my wife and I are already completely strapped for time. And so we had to understand she was going to do it in about a year. She was going to do this new master's degree program in like a year at USC. But it was going to take any free time we had together, gone, poof, gone. And it was already hard for us to get time together. But I said, you know what? This is an investment. We pay for this now with our time and our finances, and we will reap benefits from this moving forward. It's good for you. It's good for your career. Let's do it. And so we did it. I spent all the money I had, and we did it. But it's never a bad idea. Again, I think if you are in a position to have it, it's never a bad idea to have it. And at no point in your career will somebody look at you, like, say if you're trying to get a job in the film business, no one's ever going to look at your resume and go, oh, you got a master's in film studies? Well, that takes you out of the running. No, it may not automatically get you the job, but it ain't going to hurt. So I think if you're in the position to do it, I usually 9 times out of 10, I'll say absolutely do it. It costs a little now, but the potential payoff could be long lasting. So my recommendation is yes, but don't, I'm no expert on that. So there it is. All right. Scott Brown writes, yesterday, I didn't mean to make it sound like the fact that we disagreed on the vengeance line in the Batman trailer was a bad thing. Like you, I believe differences of opinion, in difference of opinion when it comes to discussion is very keen, important. Love the show and have a great day. Oh, that's cool, Scott. Thank you. Yeah. Like, if you guys have been watching me, I love the Batman trailer. I love that trailer. I didn't think it was 100% perfect. There were a couple of little nitpicks I had, and they're just nitpicks. One, I didn't really like the I'm vengeance line, because that to me felt like it was more suited for a comic book panel than a live screen. But whatever. Most people love the line. That's great. And I didn't love the haircut of Bruce Wayne. There. Those are my 2 little nitpicks. Overall, I love the trailer, but I get a lot of people love that vengeance line. That's cool. I'm sure, what I said about that was I think it's probably going to end up like that Titans trailer. Remember the first trailer for Titans on CW? And you had Dick Grayson going, fuck Batman. It was so bad. Everybody was laughing at that show before it ever came out. But I suspected that, I bet when I actually watch the show and we see that F Batman line in context, I bet it's going to feel a lot more natural. And it did. It did. I mean, you know me, I laughed and ridiculed CW for putting that in the trailer for like a year because it was a stupid thing to put in the trailer. But in context in the show, it actually worked. And I bet, even though I didn't like the I'm vengeance line in the trailer, I bet once I see it in context, I'll probably warm up to it a lot more. So we'll see how that goes. All right. KC McNatt writes, Here's my top 10 list. Talking about top 10 list of films still to come in 2020. Number 1, Tenet. Number 2, Black Widow. Number 3, Wonder Woman, 84. Number 4, No Time to Die. Number 5, Dune. Number 6, The Kingsman. I think that got moved to 2021 if I'm not mistaken. I believe Kingsman got moved to 2021. Anyway, number 7, New Mutants. Number 8, Candyman. Number 9, Free Guy. Number 10, Soul. Again, there are some really good films still to come out in 2020. And I got to go see New Mutants. Not great. But you know what? I didn't think it was bad. I think there were bad things about it. I think there were definitely bad things about it. But I'll talk more about that on Monday. Anyway, good list, Casey. Okay, next up. Soren Dalgard writes, hey guys, big fan, top 5 films. Pan's Labyrinth, such a great film. Sweeney Todd, the demon barber of, what is the full title? The Demon Barber of something street. I can't remember the full name of the title, but anyway, yeah, Sweeney Todd. The Imitation Game. How good was Cumberbatch in that? Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. That's my all-time favorite Star Wars movie. And Harry Potter 6. All right, thanks for sharing that, man. Devontae Brown writes, hey, John, did happen to read the 2 articles from AV Club, one about New Mutants and why they aren't reviewing it, and the other with an expert explaining why it's unsafe to be in an indoor theater. The first seemed to prompt many outlets to stand with them. Yeah, listen, first of all, my opinion on this about whether it's safe to go into a theater, my opinion on this, and you have to just take it with a grain of salt that I'm no expert, it is far safer to go into a movie theater that's following the proper safety procedures than it is to go into a grocery store. I mean, way more safe to go into a movie theater that has the proper safety procedures than it is to go into a grocery store or into a restaurant or into a mall or things like that. And after going to the AMC in Las Vegas, I really believe that because listen, I'll tell you what, and I talked about this a little bit in my video, but we got to the AMC theater in Vegas. They had everybody social distanced. It was great. Everybody's wearing their mask. When we checked in with our phones, we had to apply, they had hand sanitizer right there. We applied the hand sanitizer. They didn't even let you get your own drinks. Because you usually get your drink and you go to the pop machine, you hit it. Well, they didn't want everybody having to touch the same button to get the drinks out. So what they did was, if you ordered a drink, they gave you a receipt and you took it over to a drink station and they had an AMC team member get your drink for you. So you didn't even have these machines where everybody's touching the same machine. I thought that's pretty good. I didn't even think about that. That's a great idea. And then when you were actually walking into your theater, they had these big buckets of sanitizing wipes. So if you wanted to, even though we saw them cleaning the theater already, you could take in your own sanitizing wipes and wipe your seat down even more. We had nobody for 2 seats to our left, nobody for 3 seats to our right, nobody in front of us, and nobody behind us. I got to tell you, it was a great experience. And again, I go to the grocery store every week. I felt much safer. I felt much more secure. I felt much more relaxed in that theater than I do in grocery stores. Now, that may vary from place to place. As far as AV Club saying they're not going to send their critics to go to an indoor theater to do it, I think that's a liability thing. Like, I know if I was still running AMC or if I was still running Collider, I would not send any of my people to go to a theater to review it because I think there's a liability thing there. I might go myself, and I did go myself, but I wouldn't send as a part of an official part of their job. I would not send them to it. Just like I wouldn't send them to go to any indoor place right now. And so I respect the outlets that chose not to do that. I do, and I understand. I do. I understand that. But it's a little different situation for me as an individual, and I'm not taking responsibility for somebody else. Again, take everything that I'm saying with a grain of salt. I'm no expert. I'm just strictly speaking from my own point of view and from my own experience. That's all. Not trying to tell anybody else what you should do or tell anybody else how they should feel about it or tell anybody else what should be the right safety procedures or precautions for you. I'm just saying that was my experience and how I personally felt about it. That's all. All right. Thanks for writing that in, Devontae. Austin Alberto writes, John, like you, I cannot stand not seeing movies in theaters much longer. My friend and I are in a state where theaters cannot open. Me too. So we are driving 2 hours away to watch a double feature of Tenet and New Mutants. Nice. The things I do for love. Dude, I did it myself. We drove 3.5 hours each way. We drove out there Thursday afternoon. We drove back Thursday night. Got back early Friday morning. But I got to tell you, to me, it was worth it. Even though it wasn't the best movie in the world, it was totally worth it. When I walked into that theater, dude, I just felt like I was home. But, that's just me. All right, an anonymous viewer sends in $7 just to be supportive. Thank you so much for that, Anonymous. I appreciate that, man. All right, McGreeny Arrow writes, hey, John, I'm curious. Do you think the Snyder Cut will get its own score on Rotten Tomatoes? Good question. Batman vs. Superman Ultimate Edition didn't, but this is treated as something else entirely, correct? It's a good question. That'll be Rotten Tomatoes' decision. I don't know. I'm willing to wager, though. That the Zack Snyder Justice League cut will get its own Rotten Tomatoes installment. Because at least half of it is going to be stuff that wasn't in the movie. Like, you can't say that with the Batman vs. Superman Ultimate Cut. There was a bunch of new stuff, but it was still mostly the same movie, right? This thing's going to be 4 hours long, which means at least a little over half of it is going to be stuff that we hadn't seen before. So I have a feeling, I don't know this for sure, so I'm not telling you this is a fact. My guess is that Rotten Tomatoes will give it its own listing. That's my guess, at any rate. Good question. James Argento writes, Sue in The Flash is the character Mirror Master 2 framed for killing her husband, and in the comics is Ralph's wife, whose death set off the events of 2004 storyline Identity Crisis. I totally didn't know that. I had no recollection of the characters' names. I have no recollection. So what James is talking about, the other day somebody wrote in and referenced Sue, and I'm like, well, wait a minute, what Sue are we talking about? So James is following up on that. I appreciate that, James, very much. That's very considerate of you. All right, Suthius writes, hey, Mr. C, some don't understand the difference between cultural appreciation and cultural appropriation. What you wanted to do was indeed appreciation. Appropriation is when you take aspects of a culture and make a mockery of it and ridicule it. Trust me, I'm Cambodian. I've seen appropriation from people who made a mockery of my culture, and I've seen people who are appreciative and have even worn traditional garbs, etc. When they are part of festivities, etc., there is a difference. Well, I'm glad you brought that up, and it's appropriate, especially now today because of Chadwick Boseman. So for those of you who don't know what Suthius is talking about, the other day, the issue of cultural appropriation came up. And what I said, and this is how it directly ties into Black Panther, I said, I got to admit, I don't completely understand the issue of cultural appropriation. I don't completely understand it. And I mean that literally. I don't understand. I think maybe if I sat down with somebody who really does understand it and they fully explain it out to me, maybe I'll feel differently. But where this hit me was, I remember when we were getting ready to go to the Black Panther world premiere. I'd been so excited about it since they announced Chadwick Boseman was playing the role, because I loved him so much in 42 and then Get On Up. And, I just thought he was great, and the trailers looked great, and I was very excited about seeing it. And I had found somebody who made this, there's a royal kind of robe that we see Chadwick Boseman wear in the trailer. And I thought about getting that robe because it just looked badass. I thought about getting that robe and wearing it to the premiere. Like when I go to a Star Wars premiere and I wore my Chewbacca thing, or when I go to when I went to the Captain Marvel premiere and I wore the Captain Marvel thing, or when I went to the Avengers premiere and wore my Avengers thing, or whatever. And I thought about buying this robe, and I had some friends. One in particular said, you can't do that, Kimmy. That's cultural appropriation. I'm like, what? Cultural appropriation? I don't even know if I had heard the term at the time. It's like, yeah, you can't do that. That's somebody else's culture. You can't do that. I'm like, but I just want to celebrate this. I want to honor it, and I want to celebrate it. And so I didn't really understand. And so I chose to play it safe, and I didn't get the robe. So yeah, I've never understood the idea. Like, I talked the other day, I got a black buddy of mine who every once in a while dresses up as Captain America. I think that's great. I don't, again, I'm just saying, I'm not saying I disagree. I'm just saying I don't understand. And so thank you, Suthius, for sending that in. And yeah, I guess I got to admit, I don't know where the line is. I'm just saying it up front. I don't know what it is. I don't know what the line is between cultural appreciation, which is what I wanted to do, versus cultural appropriation, which is maybe what I was unwillingly or unwittingly doing. I don't know. But like I said, I'm just confessing my ignorance here. I don't really understand. But thank you for trying to shed a little bit of light on that, Suthius. I appreciate that, man. All right, Russell Amador writes, hey, John, all this talk about the Batman trailer giving off a Seven vibe made me curious on what this Seven movie is all about. I decided to tune in, and man, now I see the parallels. The games played between crooks and detectives, disturbing but great movie. Oh, you hadn't seen Seven before. Oh, yeah, man. What an ending. What's in the box? I mean, that movie is so good. And you know what? I'm guilty of this. I don't think we talk about that movie nearly enough. I think Seven deserves a lot more attention than it does. But hey, man, listen, Russell, if one of the things that this Batman trailer has done has gotten some people to go and check out Seven who maybe have never seen it before because they keep hearing people talking about the feel of the Batman trailer and that Seven movie, then already this Batman movie is doing some great things. If it's already accomplishing getting people to check out other great movies, that's a win. So well done, Matt Reeves. And I'm glad you went to check that out, Russell. All right. M. Dorsher writes, the O in my name is pronounced like the AE in Earth. Dorsher? I'm sure I'm butchering that, but thank you for trying to give me a phonetics lesson. Because I'm terrible at pronouncing stuff. Absolutely terrible. Oh, and by the way, the Florida just sent in the live chat one of the stamps in the live chat. Thank you so much for that, the Florida. I appreciate that, dude. That thing's cute too. Anyway, thank you. Endorse writes, let's see, where are we at? Wow. It is an intense and weird film. Tenet. Wow, it is an intense and weird film. There is so many times when you go, wait, what? Hope that you are in the USA can see it. So you in the USA can see it soon. Yeah, listen, I had such a good time driving out to Vegas to go see New Mutants. I'm thinking in a couple of days I may do it again to go see Tenet because I really do want to see Tenet a lot. I know some people who were doing some reviews weren't super thrilled with it, but it still has a high critic rating. It's still Christopher Nolan. I still want to see it. So thank you for the recommendation, sir. And I'm hoping in a couple of days I'll get a chance to run out to Vegas to go see it myself. All right. Thanks for that, man. All right. Team something I'll never be able to pronounce writes, do you believe that there will be any reference to Green Lantern in the Snyder Cut, whether it be substantial or even the smallest hint? There already was. There already was at least the Green Lantern Corps. There was already in the theatrical version of Justice League. There already was a reference to the Green Lanterns. So I would say the chances of that, or even a little bit more, whether it's substantial or just hints, I believe the chances for that are very high. Very high. Actually, I mean, Zack Snyder may have already made a reference to it, or I'm not sure, to be honest with you, but I would say the chances are quite. I don't think anything big and substantial. But some smaller stuff, yeah, I personally think the chance, what the nature of that will be, I don't know. But yeah, I do think the chances of that are probably going to be pretty high. Okay, let's keep going. And another stamp got sent in by Samuel Varg. Thank you, Samuel Varg. I appreciate that, man. It's always nice people sending these cute stamps. I like that. All right. Next up, Campea's number 4 fan writes, with Batman vs. Superman Ultimate Edition, Birds of Prey, Joker, and the Harley Show being rated R or MA, how do you feel about DC clearly not being scared to make movies geared towards more violence and language compared to the route that Marvel takes? I think it's refreshing myself. It's actually, no. I think you need to make your movie. For example, Joker, that was going to be R. They could have made it PG-13, but just doing what was best for the movie made it end up being an R. And that's a good thing. On the other side of that coin, Birds of Prey, that movie shouldn't have even been rated R. I felt like when I watched Birds of Prey, I just got the feeling they just purposely did things to try to force it to have an R rating. Look how cool this movie is, kiddies. It's got an R rating. Ooh. Like, then that was just a gimmick. With Joker, totally appropriate. It fit it. It was part of the DNA of that movie. Something like Birds of Prey, it was a total joke. It was a total that didn't even need to be PG-13. That didn't even need to be R. They just forced it into being an R rating. So they say, "Look how cool it is, kiddies. Ooh, it's rated R. Aren't we edgy?" And so for Joker, great. Birds of Prey, not so much great. I think you just need to make your movie. But the thing is, I think with Marvel's not afraid to make R-rated movies. It's just not, it would feel so out of place for them to do it. It's not what's best for their movies. And so I think it's great that DC does it when it is what is best for their movie. But then you got to be careful not to force it as a gimmick like they did with Birds of Prey. So it's a little bit of a dance. So I love the way Marvel does it because it works. And they put out incredibly great, you never feel like they're holding anything back, incredibly effective, wonderful films. I feel like DC, there are some examples that when they do it, it works great, like Joker. The Harley Quinn show is great, but let's not equate that with the DCU at all. So we'll see. Just do what's best for the movie, Just do what's best for the movie. That's all that matters. It doesn't matter if it's R or not. And so we'll see how that all turns out. All right. Happy New Mutants Day writes. 10 years ago, we got unfortunately blessed with Takers. Oh, I still remember that. That movie looked good to me, and it ended up being pretty disappointing. The Last Exorcism. And 20 years ago, we had The Crew, Art of War. Art of War was 20 years ago? Oh my God. And the cheerleading classic, Bring It On. That is a classic. John and Aaron, do you guys know the opening cheer and Happy New Mutants Day After 30? I don't remember the new cheer for Bring It On. No, I do not remember. It's been a while since I've watched it, so I do not at all. But I remember liking the movie. It's been a while since I've seen Mary Jane Watson in that movie. It's been a while since I've watched it, but I remember I've always liked that movie. But whew. Takers, man. It was Takers really only 10 years ago? Hold on a second, let me look this up. Yeah, it was 2010. Honestly, this one with Hayden Christensen and I think Tyrese was in it, if I'm not mistaken. No, it was T.I. Sorry about that. Idris Elba, Matt Dillon, Chris Brown. Ugh. Anyway, I remember being excited for that movie. Paul Walker was in it. That is a movie that to me feels like it was that movie feels like it was 20 years ago. This movie to me feels like it would have been like it was 20 years ago. I can't believe it's only 10 years old. That's weird. That is weird. Anyway, thank you for sending that in, man. All right, Ryan Lohner writes, you've got to love Lucifer calling the Klingon language Chewbacca. Dare I guess that Aaron suggested that line? I wouldn't have doubted. It was so fun seeing Aaron on one of my absolute favorite shows on television right now. It was so fun seeing her on that show. I thought the season was great. The first half of this season 5 was great. Great cliffhanger. And yes, there's a scene where this guy and girl start literally speaking Klingon, because there is an actual Klingon language. You can learn the Klingon language. And there's this guy and girl who actually start speaking Klingon to each other. And Lucifer is just aghast at it and calls it the language Chewbacca. Anyway, yes, Ryan, that was a great moment. Okay, next up. MD writes, probably alone in this, but I'm a little disappointed that we aren't getting a true cinematic Snyder cut. Whatever he would have done originally wouldn't have been 4 hours. For me, it negates the whole, this is what we would have got, because it's not really, is it? Well, I mean, yes and no. If Zack Snyder had stayed on the movie, would the movie that Warner Brothers ultimately would have greenlit to go to theaters been 4 hours long? No chance in hell. No. But it's much like what the Batman vs. Superman Ultimate Edition or Ultimate, whatever you call it, was going to be. It's everything that he shot, right? So if you're going to do the Zack Snyder cut, this is kind of like this Justice League's version of what the Batman vs. Superman Ultimate Edition was. It was everything that Zack Snyder had envisioned. So even though it's not what would have gone to theaters, because yeah, there's no way Warner Brothers would have let it go to theaters at 4 hours. They would have been made to cut it down. But that's what happens in a lot of movies. A lot of movies, you know, they've got like 40 extra minutes of footage, but then the studio tells them, hey, winnow it down. And so the directors with the editors winnow it down till it's like just over 2 hours or just under 2 hours or whatever. So yes, would it have been? But see, I don't think what the Zack Snyder cut is what is the version that Warner Brothers ultimately would have let in theaters? I think the idea of the Snyder cut is that it's truly Snyder's cut, for good or for ill. It's Snyder's idea. It's Snyder's vision, what his original starting point was, and he ended up shooting it to the point that there's 4 hours worth of footage. So that's what they're putting out. So I always interpreted it as that is what the promise was we were getting. Not that it's the promise of what Warner Brothers would have ultimately released. It's the promise of what Zack Snyder originally envisioned. And what Zack Snyder originally envisioned, again, for good or for bad, what Zack Snyder originally envisioned ended up being 4 hours worth of footage. So again, I don't think it's supposed to be what Warner Brothers would have released. I think it's supposed to be what Zack Snyder originally envisioned. So that's why I think it's cool. All right, let's see. Jared's Reviews writes, hey, John, was gone for a bit because I started a new job. Hey, that's awesome, man. It's always exciting starting a new job. And have been trying to find and now moving into a new place. That's always exciting too. AMC is opened near. So even though this has been a busy month, I have knocked out 8 new movies because Jared's Reviews has been going through like tons of movies since the lockdown started. 8 new movies to bring my final total to 164 since the lockdown. Movies I watched were Lights Out. I love that movie. I've always thought, how are you going to turn this little 7-minute short film on YouTube into a full-length feature film? Boom, they crushed it. I love Lights Out. Oculus, Punch Drunk Love, great Adam Sandler film. The Fighter won some Academy Awards. Half Nelson, Ryan Gosling in there. Robin Hood Men in Tights. We're men, manly men. In a World. Oh, that's with Lake Bell. I love that movie. I love Lake Bell too. And The Oath. I also finally beat Last of Us 2 and felt the story was so good that the gameplay actually slowed the story down. Listen, I can see why, because again, I've said for a long time, I think Last of Us 2 narratively is the greatest story in any game ever. And I can see how gameplay would just slow the story down. Jared's also follows up and writes, sorry, I felt like I should explain more about The Last of Us 2. Like an action movie, when the action is so intense and gripping, you can't take your eyes off the screen. But when the action stops, you're like, this is bad and slow. Get back to the action. Yeah, to me, the narrative, that's the thing. I found like the only time I was bored watching this like 8-9 hour might have been 12 hours Last of Us 2 movie cut was when the action was going on. I was more enthralled with the narrative, and I have a feeling that's what you're talking about there. All right, Dan Ketchum writes, just rewatched The Exorcist. Woo! Modern buzzsaw slasher crap is more boring than frightening, especially when compared to this classic. It has mood and atmosphere. No, I like The Exorcist very much. But I don't always agree about, like, for instance, the original Halloween. I get everybody mad at me when I say this. I don't think the original Halloween holds up. I really don't think it's that good. Oh, you should see the murderous look Rob gets in his eyes whenever I say that. I actually don't like the original Halloween. Exorcist, I do. And you're right about, here's the thing. One of the things that a lot of like Japanese and Korean and other Asian horror films today have over North American produced horror film is that they understand it's all about atmosphere. It's really about atmosphere. I mean, yes, you're going to get your boo kind of things too. Yes, that should be a part of it. But a lot, not all, but a lot of North American horror really just comes down to, oh, look out, something's going to jump out from behind the door. Ooh! You know, they don't understand the atmosphere, creating atmosphere. And a lot of Asian horror film just totally is all about creating atmosphere. And the good North American horror does that as well. And so, I agree with you, Dan. All right, next up. The Nightman writes, outside of Will Smith and Marky Mark, who's the best rapper turned actor? Eminem, 50 Cent, T.I., Ludacris, Common, Ice Cube, MGK, and of course, your buddy Tyrese. How's he doing, by the way? Enjoy New Mutants and be safe. Actually, you know what? Tyrese and I, we fired a couple of messages back and forth, and we're cool. We're cool. I sent him a quick message. I won't tell you exactly what we wrote to each other, but Tyrese and I, we're good. Anyway, this is easy. This is easy. Common. He's not just a decent actor, like rapper who's turned into a decent actor. And some of those on your list have not turned into decent actors. I say Common is a legitimately good actor. He's not just okay, he's passable, he'll work, and that's fine. He's a legitimately good actor. And I legitimately actually look forward to seeing him when he is on screen. So for me, that one is easy. I mean, I appreciate Ludacris too and stuff like that, but I think Common is the one I really have come to. Honestly, when I think of Common now, I first think of him as an actor. My first thought of Common is as an actor. Okay. Let's see here. Let's move on here. Newman Brown writes, John, I haven't heard anyone say this, but is it possible that this version of Batman is Jason Todd? Nope, zero. They've already explicitly said it is Bruce Wayne. To me, it just has that damaged Jason Todd look and vibe. Maybe this isn't Bruce Wayne at all. No, it's absolutely Bruce Wayne. This is the early days of Batman year 2. He's about a year and a half into playing Batman. They've already been very, very explicit about that. So no, there is no chance. Unless Matt Reeves is pulling a big gotcha on all of us, which I do not think he is. They've already quite explicitly stated that this is Bruce Wayne. All right. Thanks for that, Newman. All right. Next up, EJ writes, I sent a tip a while ago about comic book trilogies and completely agree that the Captain America trilogy is on another level. The rest of the trilogies are great for their own individual and completely different reasons. Can't wait to be able to bring Shazam, Aquaman, Black Panther, Doctor Strange, Wonder Woman, and Captain Marvel, and even Venom to be added to the trilogy conversation. Maybe even one day a Man of Steel trilogy will knock Captain America out of the #1 spot. Hey, listen, I'll tell you what. If they can make 2 more Man of Steel movies on the same level as Man of Steel 1, it will become the best comic book movie trilogy. That's a long way to go. The Captain America one is amazing. We're talking about the First Avenger, Civil War, Captain America, Winter Soldier, and Civil War. It's to me, it's the best comic book trilogy. Now, some people might say, John, what about the Dark Knight trilogy? I think The Dark Knight itself, the movie, is the best single movie out of the 6 films, out of the 3 Captain America films and the 3 Christopher Nolan Batman films. I think The Dark Knight is the best movie out of those 6. But my least favorite is also in that list, which is The Dark Knight Rises. That's my least favorite out of the 6. So I think overall, I kind of lean towards Captain America as a trilogy. But yeah, here's hoping that we'll get an Aquaman. Maybe we will. Maybe we won't get Black Panther now. We'll talk more about that later. Doctor Strange 1 will be interesting to see where that goes. All right. Connor writes, have you ever seen Song of the Sea, which is on Netflix? I never have seen Song of the Sea. Or The Secret of Kells. I have seen Secret of Kells. That's like 10 years old now at this point, but I have seen that one. I really like that one. They were both nominated for Best Animated Picture and both directed by Tom Moore. Oh, I didn't realize that. They are basically Celtic Studio Ghibli movies. They're so beautiful to look at. Cartoon Salon is the studio behind these films, or Cartoon Saloon is the studio behind these films. They have another coming out this year called Wolf Walkers. It'll be on Apple Plus eventually, according to G Kids. This and Green Knight, I cannot wait for, with Dev Patel. I'm very much looking forward to Green Knight. Have become my most anticipated, seriously slept on films. What's this called? Wolf Walkers? Let me just check this out. Wolf Walkers. I don't believe. Oh, and Sean Bean does one of the voices in it. Here's a look at Wolf Walkers. In a time of superstition and magic, when wolves are seen as demonic and nature and evil to be tamed, a young apprentice hunter, Robin, comes to Ireland with her father to wipe out the last of the wolves. All right. It's in post-production, coming out this year. It has not been on my radar until now, Connor. Thank you for putting that on my radar. I will keep my... So who's the other voice talent this? We got Sean Bean. I honestly don't recognize anybody else's name, but it's got Sean Bean, so that's good enough for me. And it looks great, so I will keep my eyes open for that. Thank you for sharing that, Connor. Appreciate that. All right, Isaac Beebe writes, recently there was a lot of controversy about white actors playing black roles on TV shows like The Simpsons and Family. Are you talking about like doing animated voices? But what about Hamilton? Where there are black actors portraying white roles of people who actually existed, like Aaron Burr and Thomas Jefferson. How are they getting away with it? Also, I don't know if you had any already, but if not, I just became your first Pat Campea level Patreon supporter. I love you 3,000, but I can only afford 100. Put it to give you. Oh, dude, thank you so much. No, there have been a couple of people who have signed up for the Pat Campea level of Patreon. For those of you who know what he's talking about, so we have a great group of Patreon supporters, and there is a level of Patreon supporter called the Pat Campea level. The reason it's called the Pat Campea level is because Pat Campea is my dad. And the actual description of the Pat Campea level is, come on, Dad, kick in, or something like that. I can't remember. So thank you for that, Isaac. Okay, let's talk Hamilton for a second. So it's a fair question. How come we can't have Hank Azaria voice Apu, who he's done a great job of it for decades, but we can have black actors playing white real-life characters in something like Hamilton? It's a fair question. Here's how I would answer that personally. There are a couple things to keep in mind. Number one, Hamilton is a Broadway show. It's not a movie. Remember that there is a difference. Okay? You can, with Broadway interpretations and Broadway productions, you can be a lot more experimental. You can do a lot more crazy things, and you can try a lot of other things with Broadway than you can in a movie, right? Second thing, which is a direct connection to point one, is this. What the whole idea of Hamilton is. One of the whole ideas behind doing it, particularly with a black cast, is Lin-Manuel Miranda. What is so brilliant about it is that it really emphasizes the universality of what the importance of that time and these characters was. They were conducting the American experiment, and it was about all people. And I think by doing it musically the way they did it, doing it with an all-black cast, it just kind of... Look, nobody thinks that William Burr wasn't a white guy. Nobody thinks Thomas Jefferson wasn't a white guy. Or Alexander... Look, the point was that it made us look at what America was founded to be in a much more universal scope. And I think it made a lot of people appreciate it a lot more. And again, you got to understand, you cannot forget that this was designed as a stage show to do something like that. And the whole thing was to make a point about that. And so it's not the same thing. Look, I would take issue. I would take issue if they did a true, serious biopic of Abraham Lincoln and cast, I don't know, an Asian dude, or cast a black dude, or cast a Hindi dude, whatever. Because no, you're doing a real serious biopic that was a real person. It is important that they, yeah, I would be down with that. I would stand up about that. But this is a little bit different. And so that's why, to me, it's never been an issue. To me, it's never been an issue. And it's actually a part of why I think Hamilton is so impactful. Is it forced us to look at the story of those founding fathers through a different lens, if you will. And for me personally, as a Canadian, no less, it really made me appreciate the founding of America far more than I did before. And so it was an interesting experiment. Anyway, Isaac, that's just how I would answer it. Maybe other people would have a much better answer to that than I would, but that's how I kind of saw it. Anyway, it's a good question. It's a fair question, man. All right, Suthius writes, plot twist. It was actually a mannequin that Batman beat up in that scene. Otherwise, that actor would have been dead. No, that's not true. I've probably seen about 500 reaction videos, and every single one of them goes crazy with that scene. Literal, single-handed beatdown. Let me say this, though. To all these people I've seen, because I've seen a ton of these people, all well-intentioned, saying like, oh, Batman killed that guy. He killed that guy, which you know me, I'm cool with Batman killing people. But Batman killed that guy because you hit him so many times. I'm like, kids, you clearly have never watched MMA. You've clearly never watched MMA. I've seen more than 100 fights where a guy downs an opponent and lands 4 or 5 shots before the ref gets in there and stops them. And sometimes it's not even with little fists. It's like with the actual, like, dropping elbows and stuff like that. And you know what? 30 seconds later, the fighter's back on his feet and he's okay. He's knocked senseless for a bit, and then he's on his feet and he's okay. So, like, I couldn't help but giggle a little bit. By the way, Lionheart's fighting tonight. But I couldn't help but giggle a little bit when I saw these people going, oh, man, he killed the guy. Because he punched him 3 or 4 times in his face when he was on the ground. You guys have clearly never watched UFC. The dude's fine. Now watch, in the movie they say he killed the guy, which I'm also totally cool with. But I'm like, no, just punching the guy in the face a few times on the ground does not mean he's dead. MMA fighters take much, much worse, and they're fine, so it's all good. But yes, that scene is crazy, because it's not that, what's the big deal? Batman's punching a guy in the face. It's the way he does it. It's this visceralness. There's a cruelty. There's a cruelty in the way he does it. There's a vengeance. There's that word again. There's a vengeance. There's a rage in the way he does it. And that's the Bat. A Bat who's only a year and a half into his career, who hasn't really learned to restrain himself a little bit. It was glorious. I love that scene, Suthius. I totally love that scene. All right, Orange Hand writes, 2 criticisms I often hear of Christopher Nolan, which people are using to describe Tenet, is that he has issues with sound mixing. I'm not going to disagree with that. Dialogue often difficult to hear, and giving his films and characters emotional depth. What do you think? Agree or disagree? I disagree about the emotional depth stuff. You watch films like Insomnia. You watch films like... why am I freezing on the name? Memento. You look at Insomnia, Memento, things like that. The Prestige, I think he does give good depth to his characters. How he has his audio people mix dialogue is a legitimate critique, because I have seen a couple of his films where he has the audio mixers not clearly define the audio of the dialogue. I actually remember I was invited, I was a part of a group of people that got invited by Warner Brothers to go to a early look at like 8 minutes. We went to a theater and everything to take a look at 8 minutes of The Dark Knight Rises long before it came out. And I remember a lot of us coming out and talking in the foyer after. It's like, could you understand a damn thing half of them were saying half the time? Nope. Especially Bane. Like, Bane was a lot of people had a huge difficulty understanding Bane, but it wasn't because of the accent he was using. It was partially the accent, but it was also very much the audio levels of the dialogue. It was muffled. And I'm not talking about Bane's muffled. I'm talking about just other people's dialogue too felt muffled, and the levels weren't right. And I remember a lot of us coming out of that theater and looking at each other going, did you understand a damn thing that was said in there? I picked up some of it, but not all of it, you know? And so not all of his movies have that problem. I didn't have, like, for instance, Dunkirk. I never had any problem understanding any of the dialogue, except in the heavy action scenes, but that's normal for a lot of movies. But there have been some instances where I think maybe Christopher Nolan's a little bit too hands-on with the audio mix, although directors do need to be. But yeah, that's one I've heard and one I can sort of understand, Orange Hand. I really can. All right. Bleach in the thing is saying, I couldn't hear shit in Interstellar. Interstellar is another one that there are some scenes in Interstellar that you had to really strain to understand what was being said sometimes. It is one of the issues. All right. Let's see. Somebody is also saying, who just said that in the live chat? I missed who said it. Somebody in the live chat just said Bane was totally ready for COVID-19. It was Doug G. Wear your mask. He was totally ahead of the curve. All right, Jordan Lobo writes, if they do Man of Steel 2, I want them to show more of Lois's importance to Superman's code post-death. I think CW's Smallville nailed it. I don't even want to talk about CW's. Oh, you know, Smallville. Okay. CW Smallville nailed it. Like when Dr. Fate tells her, you are the one he will need. And then showing how she helps Clark ascend to Superman. Listen, I'm going to say, I think in the first Man of Steel, him meeting Lois and seeing her bravery, I think that's one of the things that helped shape his direction. I thought, listen, I'll just speak for myself here, Jordan, but I thought that was pretty clearly and well communicated in the first Man of Steel. So yeah, hey, if you want to see how much Lois can impact Superman, go read Injustice: Gods Among Us Year 1. You want to see what happens to Superman when there's no Lois? Go read Injustice: Gods Among Us Year 1, the comic series. Go read that if you want to see what happens to Clark without Lois being there. Woo! Some of my favorite writing in a comic movie in over a decade. Okay, thanks a lot for that, Jordan. All right, Dak Patton writes, do you see him hitting on the Queen? Though he's just 9 and she's 14, yeah, he's probably gonna marry her someday. My, this here Anakin guy, maybe Vader someday later, now he's just a small fry. A little bit of Weird Al Yankovic in our day. By the way, for those of you who saw Bill and Ted 3, which, by the way, I did not think was great, although the ending was really good. Anyway, if you watch the post-credit scenes, you'll get a quick look at Weird Al Yankovic playing his accordion. So a little bit of Weird Al Yankovic in there, Patton, to brighten our day. I love that song. That's a great song. Where do we go? Long, long time ago, in a galaxy far away, Naboo was under an attack. And I thought me and Qui-Gon Jinn could talk the Federation in to maybe cutting them a little slack. But their response, it didn't thrill us. They locked the doors and tried to kill us, but we escaped that gas and met Jar Jar and Boss Nass. Anyway, we've gone on. I love that song. That is one of my favorite Weird Al Yankovic songs. Okay, where are we at here? Jack Dries. Is that where we're at? Are we at Jack Dries here? Yes, Jack Dries. Had a great cinematic week. Saw Star Wars 5, that's Empire Strikes Back, for 15 cents. Saw Inception in IMAX twice, once digital, once laser, within 4 days. And I saw New Mutants in IMAX laser Thursday night. On top of that, just got A-list. Hope your experience brought on the filthy. Listen, I'll tell you what. First of all, I'm so envious that you got to see Empire on the big screen again. Awesome that you got to go see Inception again. And I didn't love New Mutants, but I loved going to see New Mutants. You know, honestly, they could have had a blank screen with Smashing Pumpkins music playing underneath for 2 hours, and I would have loved going. I mean, it's funny because Sol and I were walking into the theater, and he goes, man, I really hope this movie is worth it for you. And I told him, I said, look, I almost don't care how good or bad this movie is. I'm here to go to the movies. And that to me is good enough right now. And yeah, so it is what it is. Anyway, Jack, I'm glad you're able to have that experience, my friend. All right, Suthius writes, I think I'm cute. I know I'm sexy. Oh, that's some HBK. That's some Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels theme music. And by the way, anyway, we'll get to that in a second. I think I'm cute. I know I'm sexy. I've got the looks that drive all the girls wild. I've got the moves that really move them. I send chills up and down their spines. I'm just a sexy boy. Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, my favorite WWE intro music. What are some of your all favorites? Well, listen, I'll tell you what, by the way, the original version of that song, I think, was Sherry Martel. It wasn't, the original version of that song wasn't I Think I'm Cute, I Know I'm Sexy, which Shawn Michaels sings. It's actually, the original version of that song was Sherry Martel, who was his manager for, I think it was Sherry Martel, who was his manager for a while, and she sang it. You know he's cute. You know he's sexy. He's got the looks that drive all the girls. It was actually her, and then later they changed it. They changed it. To HBK singing it himself because Sherry Martel wasn't going to be his manager anymore. Anyway, a little bit of WWE history for you there. One of my favorite songs, if we're not just talking about intro music, because, you know, Stone Cold's intro music is great. The Rock's intro music was great. I loved The Edge's intro music. You Think You Know Me. You know, I love his intro music. A lot of great, I love Triple H's intro music, The Game. Honestly, you got to go back a ways. Here's a little bit more WWE trivia for you. This is back when this is back when I was but a wee lad. And Hulk Hogan was in WWE and he was the heavyweight champion. Hulk Hogan had a theme song called I Am a Real American, right? A little bit of trivia for you. If you want to win your next WWE trivia night, here's a little bit of trivia for you. And the song was, I am a real American, fight for the rights of every man. You know, that was the song. I'm going to ask you guys in the chat, here's a little bit of trivia for you. That song, I Am a Real American, was somebody else's theme song before WWF gave it to Hulk Hogan to be his theme song. And it wasn't like 20 years before. It was like just a few months earlier. That song was somebody else's theme song in the WWE, in the WWF at the time. I'm asking if any of you guys, and so Jesse Sadwick is saying, yes, you're right. Rick Derringer sang the song. But do any of you guys know? Somebody's guessing Sergeant Slaughter. Nope, it wasn't Sergeant Slaughter. Callie B is guessing Big Boss Man. It wasn't Big Boss Man. Ronda Rousey. No, it's not Ronda Rousey. Too many years earlier. And yes, the Chrononaut Report gets it 100%. Good on you for remembering this. I Am a Real American was the theme song for the tag team of Barry Windham and Mike Rotundo. That was the theme song for that. They were the tag team champions. They were the rivals of Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov, and they would constantly battle back and forth, and their theme song was I Am a Real American, and eventually that song got taken by Hulk Hogan, and Hulk Hogan started to use it as his theme song. So there you go, guys. We just did a little bit of WWE history there. Little bit of WWE history there. All right, next up, Tommy Woodward writes, John, I was so happy for you that you got to go back, and I'm a bit jealous. Hope California will get to open soon. Fingers crossed. Yeah, I don't think it's going to open anytime soon in California. I'll be honest with you. I really don't. I think we're still a ways away from movie theaters being able to open in California. And listen, while I want the movie theaters open, and I think if they open the theaters like the movie theater I just went to in Nevada, I think it could be a very safe environment, but I will never be mad at public officials who are acting in what they think is the public's best interest. Listen, I may disagree that movie theaters need to be closed right now. Personally, I think you can open them with the right safety procedures to still be a relatively safe place. That's what I think. But while I may disagree, I can respect if the motivation is, listen, because listen, you know the governor of California wants movie theaters open. It's California. This is Hollywood town. They want the movie theaters open. Listen, if he thinks I got to do what's not popular because I think it's in the best interest of the people who live in my state, I may disagree, but I can respect that. The unfortunate part of that is that for the next foreseeable future, whenever I want to go to a movie, I'm going to have to make a 3.5-hour drive to Las Vegas to go and see it. All right, Yee writes, So I just bought Bill and Ted Face the Music and watched a little bit of it, really digging it, but I just found out that a movie theater near me is playing it. Should I wait and watch it in theater or see it now? Well, I mean, it all depends. Listen, I'm seeing a lot of people are saying they really like Bill and Ted Face the Music, so take that. I didn't think it was all that great, to be honest with you. I thought the ending was really nice. I won't spoil the ending, but I thought like the last 15 minutes were really nice. I did quite enjoy the last 15 minutes of it. I got to say I really did. Overall, I didn't think it was all that good of a movie. Making Bill and Ted's daughters just absolute 100% replicas of themselves, I thought was really... So you're telling me their daughters' moms had zero influence on them at all? And whatever. I didn't think it was all that good, but I didn't think it was all that bad either. It wasn't all that bad. But don't take my word for it. A lot of people really did like it. I would say if you're really looking forward to seeing this movie and you have the opportunity to see it the way movies are meant to be seen on a big screen, I'd say go watch it in theater. And that's coming from a guy who didn't even love the movie. I think it was okay at best, but a lot of other people like it. And if it's a movie you're looking forward to and you have the opportunity to see it the way it was meant to be seen, I say go to a theater and check it out. That's what I would say. All right. I don't have that option right now, but maybe you do. All right. Ryan Lohner writes, My interest in New Mutants suddenly plummeted with this news that a black character in the comics was cast with a white actor because the director thought race issues weren't important in an X-Men movie. Point is, this guy's head zoom. I have no idea what you're talking about. Who's supposed to be I don't think Danielle's supposed to be black. Ileana's not supposed to be black. Cannonball isn't black. I don't think who was supposed to be black? Now, granted, Rain certainly isn't supposed to be black. I'm not a historian. I'm not a New Mutants historian by any stretch of the imagination. So I don't know, but what character was supposed to be black? There's only I think that you only see 6 people in the entire movie. I'm not sure which character that was supposed to be. Anyway, yeah, I don't think who that was supposed to be. But it is what it is. So anyway, Dixon Cider writes, Hello, John. I recently saw Tenet as it's playing where I'm from, and I quite liked it, but I did leave the theater extremely confused. My question is, do you think Tenet can break even box office-wise with the pandemic going on? Thanks from a big fan. I don't know. I don't know if it can, because listen, theaters aren't open in California. Theaters aren't open in New York. They're open in most countries, but there's still some countries that aren't. But even where theaters are, it's limited capacity. I think Tenet can do okay, but it's such an expensive movie. This is a movie, I don't believe this $800 million line, but this is a movie that minimum is going to cost $600, maybe even $700 million to break even. Can it make that in the current circumstances? I don't know. That's a tall order. But I do know this. It's going to literally make 10 times the money in limited theaters than it would if they released it VOD. I mean, that's just a fact. It's going to make, even though it probably won't break even, it's going to make 10 times more than if they put it out on VOD. So, and, for Warner Brothers and Christopher Nolan, it became about a bigger issue for them. It became about them wanting to support movie theaters and to support the movie-going experience and try to help movie theaters recover. And I think it's going to do a lot to do that. I think it's going to do a lot, go a long way in that. But breaking even, I don't know. That might be a tall order. This might be one of those situations where it really does need to combine all the money it makes in movie theaters plus a very robust VOD release in a couple of months. And when you put all that together, maybe it can break even, but it's going to be a tall order, Dixon. It's going to be a tall order. All right. Steven Johnson writes, with Ready Player 2 about to drop, I went back and reread Ready Player 1, which I didn't like. But after the movie, I really enjoyed the Ready Player 1 book. All the nods the filmmaker, it's Steven Spielberg, added visually. Have you ever read a book you didn't like and then seen the movie and then appreciated the book more? Huh. I don't often get asked questions that I've never been asked before. That's definitely one I've not only never been asked before, I've never even really considered. I can't think of one. I've read a book first and didn't like the book. And then the movie came out and I did like the movie. And then I went back to the book and suddenly I liked the book more. You know what? I don't think I've ever personally had that experience. That's a really interesting question, but I will say no. I've personally never had that experience myself. That's not been a part of my experience. But that's a really Ready Player One's a good one for that. You know what? Because I never got all the way through the book of Ready Player One. I heard a bit of the audio thing, saw the movie clean, so I was able to watch the movie without comparing it to the book. Loved the movie, loved Ready Player One. It was so much fun. And it's made me want to go watch the book. But yeah, that's about it. All right, 50 Shades of Geek writes, I heard the new SpongeBob movie is in theaters. Any idea when it's coming to digital? I'm not going to lie to you, 50 Shades. I don't keep track of what's going on with SpongeBob. No offense to anybody who loves SpongeBob, but it's not my cup of tea, so I don't really follow it very much. I really want to watch it because it focuses on SpongeBob's relationship with his pet snail, Gary. Since my dog, Cindy, died last month, I want a good boy and his pet movie. Oh, that's a nice thing. Also, side note, I named her Cindy after the character from SpongeBob. Crazy how it all comes full circle. First of all, I didn't even know. I could honestly not tell you the name of a single SpongeBob character. I just can't. So I did not know there was a SpongeBob character named Cindy. But if you know that, and you actually named your dog that, then I think that's a really special thing. That now you get to go and watch SpongeBob again, especially with the passing of your pet. And I'm a dog guy, so believe me, I relate. I think that's a special thing, man. So thanks for sharing that, dude. But no, when it's coming, I have no idea. I don't really follow it, to be honest with you. All right. Alan Dale writes, John, regarding the Flashpoint movie, what if this is used to break up the DCEU? For example, something happens in the new movie that sends all the heroes into separate universes. This will then allow DC to move forward with standalone movies. How likely is this? Unlikely. Walter Hamada already said at DC Fandom that they don't need to do anything like that. They're just saying, look, we're going to count this as multiverse. Different things can happen in different places. Also, you have to remember this. Wonder Woman 84 was written and even being shot before they even knew what this Flash movie was going to be. The Aquaman movie has its script written, and it was written before they had this version of the Flash movie even written. So I don't know. They might use this Flashpoint movie to introduce the notion of multiverse so that when we look back at Joker and we look at Robert Pattinson's Batman movie, people don't go, but I don't get it. If he's Batman, how come he's not over here? Different universe, different reality. They're not in the same world. You know, I think it's just their way of kind of explaining that, but I don't think it's their way of breaking apart everything, because then every other movie that's coming would have had to have known that that's what they were doing in the Flash movie, and they didn't. So I don't think it's going to be like that. I think it's just like Walter Hamada said. They're going to kind of reintroduce the idea of multiverse, but then I think they're just going to go with it at that. They will at some point. They're going to bring Aquaman and Wonder Woman and all these characters back together again to do another Justice League movie. Of that, I have no doubt. I don't think it's anytime soon, but it's happening. And so, no, I don't think they're going to break it all apart into their own individual universes. All right, MD writes, just watched Tenet in the UK. Cinema was safe. I personally love the film. I didn't find it any more confusing than Inception, to be honest. Anyone that's watched a fair amount of sci-fi should be fine, but it definitely won't suit everyone. A must-watch either way. Good to know. And I am hearing that, listen, there are a lot of people who do know Christopher Nolan's films very well, who do know sci-fi very well, that I'm still hearing saying it can be a bit of a confusing movie. I haven't seen it yet myself, so I can't speak to that directly. But I'm glad you saw it, MD, and I'm glad you were able to follow it and enjoy it. And hopefully when I have a chance to see it, I'll feel the same way you do about it. All right, next up, 50 Shades of Geek writes, the stupidity of humans never ceases to amaze me. New Mutants has been out for 5 minutes, and I'm already seeing people online saying, now that the X-Men are in the MCU, how soon can we get an Avengers versus X-Men movie? Well, honestly, 50 Shades, that's not dumb. I mean, think about it. We have known for years, going on years, that the X-Men that we have known, that whole X-Men universe that we have known since 2000 is now done. We've known that for a long time now. And we've known forever that this New Mutants movie was the final installment of that sort of X-Men world, right? We've known that for a long time. It's not like the news just came out 1 week ago and now we're getting X-Men and now we're getting New Mutants and now people are looking past that. We've known this for a long time. So to be fair, people have been asking and wondering about when are they going to bring X-Men into the MCU? Are we ever going to get X-Men versus Avengers? People have been asking that question for a year and a half, right? Like long before New Mutants came out. It's not like New Mutants came out and now suddenly people are just wondering about it. People have had a long time to think about this. So it's really not that dumb of a question to ask when you really think about it in context right now. All right, Russell Amador writes, hey, John, after years of wondering when New Mutants will receive, let me try this again. After years of wondering when New Mutants will receive, well, you probably meant will release. We have finally got what we asked for better or for worse. I've been trying to go back to movies, but after seeing 20% on Rotten Tomatoes and called worst X-Men movie, I guess I'll wait for Tenet. It's not the worst X-Men movie. I'll just tell you that right now. I don't care what other people say. It is not the worst X-Men movie. I will go into more detail on Monday. I'll say this. They don't do a great job with their characters. They don't flesh out their characters very well. It's a really interesting premise and story. At the end of the day, when the movie was done, I'm glad I watched it and I modestly enjoyed myself watching it. But there are big problems with the movie. There are. And I'm not surprised that 4 out of every 5 critics are saying that they don't like it. I'm not surprised only 1 out of every 5 critics is saying that they like it. It does have big issues. But I disagree wholeheartedly that this is the worst X-Men. No way. No, it's all subjective. Granted, it's all subjective. But if you're going to ask me, no way. This is significantly better than like X-Men Origins Wolverine. This is significantly better than a couple of other ones. A great movie? No. But I think it's so interesting and such a different approach that even though they do weak character work, dialogue's not all that great, blah, blah. The premise itself is so strong that it carries it. But that's just my opinion. I would say check it out. You may love it. You may be like me and just kind of appreciate it a little, or you may not like it, but I think it's worth checking out if you get the chance, Russell. That's just my opinion. All right. The other black guy writes, did you see the new California reopening guidelines by the governor? Talk about moving the goalposts. I'm sorry, but the metrics are unobtainable. This is really bad. Theaters are not going to reopen for a long time. It's true. I think they have, but again, I'm not judging the guy because his concern is he doesn't care about popularity. His concern is the well-being of his people. I may agree or disagree, but I'll never fault a public servant too much when their main stuff is for the well-being of all of their people, And there are pretty strict guidelines. They're pretty strict guidelines. But you know what? I'll say this. Maybe if this country had taken things more seriously in fucking February and taken some stronger measures in February, we might have been out of this mess by now. Just saying. It is what it is, but I'm guessing it's probably going to be a little while before I can go back to the movies where I live in California. And well, we'll have to wait and see how things transpire. Things are changing day by day, man. Let's just see what happens. All right. Brandon writes, oh my God, the Dune trailer on September 9th at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. John, it's going to rock our world. I certainly hope so. I've seen those reports. I don't know how 100% true they are, but I have seen a bunch of reports saying September 9th is going to be when they release the trailer for Dune. Could even be September 3rd. But either way, we are getting our first look at Dune. I've already read some descriptions about what the trailer is. I cannot wait, Brandon, because I agree, dude. I think it is going to rock our world. I don't think they're going to reveal too much. And I hope they don't reveal too much. But I'm very, very excited for that first look at that. All right. Hold a second. We had a bit of a jump here. Let me get back to where we were. The thing just did a massive jump. Okay, there was Alan, MD, 50 Shades, Russell, other black guy, Brandon. Okay, now we're up to Willow. And Willow writes, did you get popcorn for your viewing of New Mutants? And if so, how much butter did you use? As a matter of fact, I didn't get any popcorn. So Sol and I got to Vegas faster than we thought we would. So we decided to grab dinner. There was a restaurant literally right across from the theater. We grabbed dinner. And the manager gave us, I won't say why, the manager gave us like some free appetizers and stuff. So between my entree and the appetizers they gave us, I was actually pretty full. And so we went in, I'm like, I can't believe I'm not getting popcorn, but I didn't get popcorn. There would have been a lot of butter. To me, popcorn is but a butter delivery device. So there would have been a lot of butter. But yes, I didn't get a lot of butter, but I didn't get popcorn because I was just full. Which I feel like is a missed opportunity. All right. FU 2020 writes, tragically, and now we're up to the point where obviously this is where people started sending in things after the news of Chadwick Boseman. Tragically ironic that Chadwick Boseman passes away on Major League Baseball's Jackie Robinson Day, 42. He did an amazing job in that role. Yes, he did. Among many others, RIP, hashtag Wakanda Forever, 2020. Indeed. Actually, I'll show you guys this. I put this up. Some of you probably saw this. I put this up on my social media yesterday. And I'll just share it with you now. But I just felt like I wanted to do it. Boseman Forever, when I found out he had passed, I decided to put that up. And then I started to see other people put this up as well. After I put this up online, I saw other people putting this up with the hashtag Boseman Forever. It's such a sad thing. And you're right. I mean, I didn't realize, I don't really follow Major League Baseball, but I didn't realize it was Jackie Robinson Day in baseball. There is something quietly somber about it's announced that he passed away on Jackie Robinson Day. And you're right, he was so good in the role. I didn't even love the movie. I didn't think the movie overall did the legacy of Jackie Robinson as much due as it should have, but he was fabulous in it. He was really good in it. All right, Rafael Castillo writes, I just read the devastating news of Chadwick Boseman's death. I had no idea he was battling cancer. Most people didn't. I'm gobsmacked by this. A seriously tragic loss. Absolutely was. And again, it wasn't that long ago that he had put out that video on social media about something else, and everybody said, man, he looks really thin. And some people speculated that he was sick, but then they kind of made the cover that he was preparing for a role or something, so we all kind of forgot about it. But yeah, it was tragic to hear, Raphael. All right, Suthius writes, I'm not even going to ask about the future of Black Panther. I'm just shocked that I never knew he was fighting cancer. I don't think I've ever read or heard about it anywhere. A great talent, so young. It's always so sad when they're gone too soon. I agree. And so impressed. Again, that's the thing. After the shock of it, I was hit with this wave of just feeling impressed that he kept working. He knew for years. He kept working. He kept contributing. He never let people know about it. He didn't want that to be the story. He didn't want that to be where people's attention was. He wanted the attention on the work and on the art. And just you're right. It just hit you across the face. So unexpected. R. Lee writes, John, I got the news about Chadwick just as I was sitting down for dinner last night, and I couldn't even finish it. So sad. I'd noticed he'd lost a lot of weight recently, which other people did too, but didn't want to presume. Now it makes sense. No question. Just condolences from me. Yeah, to everybody who knew him, who worked with them, who were, he was one of their close friends, loved ones, family. And you're right. I'm also struck by how young he was. It just adds to it, and it's truly a loss for the whole movie fan community as well. Truly a loss for the whole movie fan community. The real Michael Myers writes, a sad day for the MCU and Hollywood in general when a young talent like Chadwick Boseman loses his fight with cancer, RIP. And it's really unfortunate that it was really only about 10 years ago that he really started to make his mark in the entertainment world. With things like 42 and Get On Up and things like that, he had only really started making his mark. And such an incredible talent. Like even a bad movie like 21 Bridges, he was so good in that, He always delivered. And for those of us who are appreciators of the art, it is such a loss that we'll never get to see him do his art again. It's so sad. All right. Augie Boyas writes, sad day today for the comic book movies. Our Black Panther passes away. R.I.P. Chadwick Boseman. I was in tears. And not just comic book movies. Yes, we're never going to get to see him as T'Challa again. But it was when you look at him playing Jackie or Marshall or James, when you see what he was able to do to bring these real life characters to life for a new generation, that he did it with such grace and such effectiveness. I will miss him in our comic book movies. I think I'm going to miss him even more in the movies he did outside of the comic book world. I mean, it really is a loss on that level. Dan Ketchum writes, can't believe Chadwick Boseman is gone. I had no idea he was even sick. To secretly be fighting cancer for 4 years and to still do all that he did, he must have had an iron will. And again, to me, that is one of the craziest things about this whole story, was the fact that, he continued to work. I mean, let's be honest here. Black Panther had made him enough money that he was going to be perfectly fine for the rest of his life, whether the rest of his life was going to be 3 more years or the rest of his life was going to be 30 more years. He had made enough money. He didn't need to work. But for him, it was about the fight. It was about the art. He didn't want his illness to be the story. He wanted the work to be the story. And just incredibly impressed. Incredibly impressed. What grace. Seriously, what grace. Anyway, John Argot Rodriguez writes, this effing brave Titan worked his ass off during his brave fight against cancer just to bring entertainment and joy to us. Boseman is a real king, and I'm just still in denial that he's actually gone, and at such a young age. Rest in power, Wakanda forever, and Boseman forever. Yeah, I mean, again, just so massively impressed. He didn't have to keep working. He didn't have to keep quiet about it. He could have let people know, even a few weeks ago. He could have let people know. So again, there is still a part of me that sort of wishes, there is a part of me that sort of wishes that they did let us know, so that we could have poured out our love and our appreciation while he was still here to receive it. But at the same time, the fact that he chose to make sure that that wasn't the story. He wanted his legacy to be about his work and his art and what he did. And what can I say? I'm just tremendously impressed by the guy. Just tremendously impressed by the guy. Casey McNatt writes, it's a sad day when we lose one of our Hollywood stars too soon. R.I.P. Chadwick Boseman. You will be missed. Wakanda forever. See, and I understandably see from a lot of people, why should we care? I never knew him. I get that. That's a legit argument, because I remember, like, when Carrie Fisher passed away, I wept, and I had no idea why I wept. I didn't know Carrie Fisher. Carrie Fisher certainly didn't know me. Why was I weeping? And I realized, between Carrie and Robin Williams passing away, you realize oh, I get it. We feel this because our emotions don't make a distinction between physically being with somebody and the impact they have on us. I spent so many hours, days, weeks, years of my life with Robin Williams in the room with me. Granted, he was on a screen. But I spent so many hours, days, weeks, or years with Robin Williams and Carrie Fisher, obviously with all the Star Wars stuff, that had such an impact on me, that entertained me, that made me feel things. And then to have that person gone, I don't know that our emotions make a distinction between somebody who made us feel things, who spent time with us. I don't think our emotions know how to make a distinction that it was somebody actually in a room with us face to face or somebody who was on a screen delivering that to us. And I don't pretend to have the answers. All I know is that, when Robin died, I was emotional. When Carrie died, I cried. And I realized afterwards it's because I spent so much time with them. They may not have named, Carrie Fisher didn't know it, but I spent so much time with her. And she made me feel excitement and joy and hope and inspiration and all that kind of stuff. And now that person was gone. And my emotions didn't make a distinction between knowing her real in real life and that, but this was a person who made me feel a lot of things over the course of my lifetime. And so when I find out that Chadwick Boseman died, I didn't weep because, again, his career was tragically, unfortunately short. He'd only really started in the last decade to make his imprint. But what he made me feel watching 42, what he made me experience watching Get On Up, what he made me appreciate in Marshall, playing Marshall, and the excitement of him being a part of the MCU. So when I read on my phone, Chadwick Boseman passes away, I felt it. I didn't know him. He didn't know me. I mean, I met him, but that's nothing. I didn't know him. He didn't know me. But he had made me feel. He had made me think. He had made me imagine. And when somebody can be a part of that for your experience, and then they're gone, we feel the loss. And I think a lot of us felt it. And thanks for sending that in, Casey. All right, Magic K writes, Chadwick Boseman news is so shocking that I don't want to believe that it's real, but I hope he can find his way to the other side. Again, that was part of it. It was the shock of it. It's like, wait a minute, what? What? Like, when Don Rickles passed away, Don Rickles is one of the great comedic geniuses in Hollywood history. But, he was at a certain age that when he passed, we were sad, but, it wasn't shock. The Chadwick Boseman thing was shock. And yes, as we look back in hindsight, we should have seen the signs with he was deteriorating physically. We thought maybe it was something else, but it was the shock, man. It was the absolute shock. The Wakandan Forever writes, Chadwick Boseman, King T'Challa, words cannot express what I am feeling right now. My favorite actor, role model, even my online name is because of him. To his family, friends, and fans, thoughts and prayers. The world was a better place for him being in it. I will share a personal story. I remember the first time I saw Black Panther in theaters. I was at the Grand Lake Theater in Oakland, California. I was excited, obviously, and then a bus showed up. Turns out it was a school bus full of local kids in the area. It was a majority of low-income kids of color. As a black man in college studying for an eventual career in teaching, it had a profound impact on me. That day changed me and those kids forever. To see a hero who we could identify with meant the world. And you know what? Well, thank you so much for putting that so much more eloquently than I tried to do earlier in the show. That's the thing. I think what a lot of people aren't going to be able to truly fully appreciate, including myself. I am able to appreciate him as an artist, what he did, what he was able to help bring to me on screen, the experiences I had watching him on screen. I can appreciate all that. But there's an element to this that I think a lot of us who are watching the show right now, we will simply never be able to fully grasp, which is there's a whole demographic of people out there who for the first time in their lifetimes, in a meaningful way, saw the star of the show in a superhero movie who looked like them. Too many people who aren't black write that off. Oh, what's the big deal of that? You know what the big deal of that? I can speak to that. Listen, seriously, I'm Italian. And so to me, it's not even as big of a deal. But I remember the Legionnaire, there was a UFC fighter who, when the Italian flag came up, he's Italian. I got excited. I remember it was the first time I saw an Italian MMA fighter in the ring. I didn't know him. I had no association with him. None of that. But I suddenly felt this swelling of pride and joy, and I was excited to see he's another white dude like me, but it was an Italian in the ring. And I got so excited. And again, this swelling of pride and joy. That's probably just 1/5 of what a lot of people felt being able to go into seeing a full feature MCU hero, a king, a warrior, to see Black Panther. Too many people undervalue how important that was to some people for good reason. And that's part of the reason why I said earlier, and we'll go more into this on Monday, but why I think, no, I don't think you stop doing T'Challa. You don't stop doing Black Panther now because Chadwick Boseman passed away. That's not how you honor Chadwick Boseman. It is culturally too important of a character. You know, and Chadwick Boseman, he was part of the reason why this had become such a culturally important thing. Not just for the MCU, but I think for culture as a whole. It's a culturally important character. But anyway, that's a discussion for another time. Thank you for sharing your perspective on that, Wakandan Forever, because you did it way better than I did. So thank you for that. All right, next up, Wakandan Forever also writes, Black Panther, King T'Challa, Wakanda will no longer watch from the shadows. We must not. This is from the movie. We will work to be an example of how we as brothers and sisters on this earth should treat each other. Now more than ever, the illusions of division threaten our very existence. We all know the truth. More connects us than separate us. But in times of crisis, the wise build bridges. The foolish build barriers. We must find a way to look after one another as if one single tribe. One of the great endings. You know, often we talk about great starts to comic book movies, like the greatest ones ever. You've got Nightcrawler attacking the White House in X-Men 2. You've got the opening scene of X-Men with young Magneto in the concentration camp. You've got, I mean, we talk about great starts, great beginnings of comic book movies. Ben Affleck as Bruce Wayne at the beginning of Batman versus Superman, watching the world falling apart around him. I mean, great beginnings, but truly one of the great endings of a movie was that speech that T'Challa gives at the UN regarding the wise build bridges, the foolish build barriers. It was such a great moment, and yeah, one will always remember. Wakandan also writes, I want to personally thank you, John, the show and audience. This has always been a place I felt comfortable in, and where I could tell, or where I could let my comic fanboy come out. I really needed it. Thank you so much for sharing that, man. It is a hard day. Chadwick Boseman, King T'Challa, Wakanda forever. And by the way, Wakandan, I'm glad you're able to be here and feel that support. Thank you for also being one of the members of our community who gives that support to everybody else, who lets other people feel great being a geek and loving the things that they love, and making a welcoming place for them. So thank you for that, Wakanda Forever. I appreciate that, man. Let's see. Next up, Buddy Christ, the OG Jedi writes, I am floored by the passing of Chadwick Boseman. I know we all love him for sharing his talent with us, but it was his humanity and decency that really seemed to emanate to all he affected, near or far. In a world sorely lacking good news, in desperate need of good, decent human beings who not only contribute positive examples for us to emulate, this truly hurts. He lived a life that some of us can only aspire to or even achieve. He contributed so much to film and society as a whole in a short 43 years. The world is a less better place without him. Thank you, Mr. Boseman. Your impact on film and on society will leave a legacy for many that would follow in your footsteps. May family and friends take comfort in the love we all share for this good man. Well put, sir. Well put. I concur completely. It was, and I think, you know, speaking, again, I didn't know him personally, as most of us didn't. But the fact that in this battle, he kept working, kept creating, kept making art, and kept the story about the work speaks so much to his character. It really does. It speaks so much to his character that you cannot help but be overwhelmed and inspired by that. And, you know, I think it's a testimony to the work that he did, of how impactful his work was, that a lot of people right now are asking, what does the MCU do now? And we'll talk about that. And I think it's important. And I think that honors Chadwick Boseman to talk about what does the MCU do now, but we'll save that for Monday. We'll just let this sit for a couple of days. But yeah, it was, obviously, I think about his great work, but I'm also hit by how impressed I was by his character. All right, thank you so much for that, Buddy Christ, the OG Jedi. All right, Phoenix Arising writes, hey, John, I'm sure many have already asked about Chadwick. Can I take a moment to express my condolences to the family? Chadwick, thank you for the joy you gave me. Please give Stan Lee a high five for me. Hashtag Wakanda forever. Indeed, you know what? Somebody put up a picture. I saw it on my social media feed last night of this picture that was taken not long ago of Chadwick and Kobe Bryant together in a picture together. So that was thing, and very good of you to do that, Phoenix. By the way, guys, at the end of the show, any of the questions and tips that get sent in here that are referring to Chadwick and just expressing your stuff, all that stuff, I'm just going to take. I'm going to donate it to the American Cancer Society today. So just I didn't mention that off the top of the show, but I just just going to let you guys know that now. Anyway, so thanks for sharing your thoughts on that, Phoenix Rising. I know I appreciate what you said there. Let's see here. Cecilia Kiddo writes, truly heartbroken with the loss of such an icon, and what makes it even sadder is the insensitive need to speculate about who will replace him. Makes me lose hope in humanity. I disagree with you, Cecilia. I really do. I disagree. I think, like I said, you know, it is an insignificant thing when if somebody passes away and you don't even wonder, oh, how does this affect things? I think it's a testimony to the impact that he made for us to very naturally ask the question, what effect does this have? I think that is I don't think that's a lack of humanity. I don't think it's a sad thing or an insensitive thing. I think it speaks to the work that he did. I think it speaks to the impact that he had, that now suddenly in his loss, we're like, well, what do we do? I think that's a very natural thing to ask. And I don't see that as being an insensitive thing to ask. I think that is testimony to his impact and his work and his legacy and what he did. I think if nobody was asking that question, I think that diminishes a little bit what his legacy was and what his impact was. I think the fact that so many people are asking that question speaks volumes to his legacy and to his impact and to his work and to his art. That his now sudden removal from our world makes a very large, very recognizable, unavoidable gap that we are left to go, how do we fill this incredible gap that is left behind because of the loss of Chadwick Boseman? I think it is an honor that people would be asking that question. I mean, I can only hope that, you know, whenever I leave this world, that in some way, shape, or form, I've left a hole somewhere that people go, how do we fill this hole? Like with John gone, how do we, I mean, I don't know what that would be, but I can only hope that something like that would happen when I go. I think all of us want to feel like we live a life of significance. And I think the fact that so many people are asking that question is a testimony to that significance. So I don't think that's an insensitive thing. I don't think that's a sad thing. I don't think that's an inappropriate thing. I think it speaks powerfully to how much we all recognize what he meant to the art, what he meant to this world of the entertainment, what he meant. I think it speaks to his legacy. I really do. That's just me. I'm not dissing on how you're feeling about that, Cecilia. Not at all. I respect that. Your focus right now is just on the loss of the human being. I respect that. But I also think it's not an insensitive thing or speaks poorly of other people who go, oh my God. Like, what do we do now with the MCU? What do we do now with King T'Challa, who's such a culturally important figure? What do we do with this? I think the very fact that we are asking those questions, or that people are asking those questions, again, is a testimony. I think that's a testimony. But then again, that's just the way I see it. And we'll speak more about that stuff, but we'll wait till Monday to do that. But I think it's a totally natural question to ask, Cecilia. I really do. And I think maybe we can look at it a little bit different way. But anyway, thank you for sharing your thoughts. I do appreciate that, Cecilia. All right, next up, Curtis Lopez writes, I was there at the El Capitan when the MCU Phase 3... I was there too, Curtis. I was in the same room with you. I was there at the El Capitan when the MCU Phase 3 lineup was announced and Chadwick Boseman was announced as Black Panther. Black Panther is such a special movie to me. We must live by these words. The wise build bridges while the foolish build barriers. Man, it was just such a cool... Again, I know it was a big theatric, but when you had Chris Evans on one side of Chadwick Boseman and Robert Downey Jr. on the other side, each tug-of-warring on his arm, you know, it was such a cool moment. It was such a cool moment. And ultimately, that's not really what Civil War was about, and that's fine. But I just remember, and again, for you guys who remember back in the AMC days when I would talk about this, I was just so happy that they cast him. Because I'd been so impressed by his work in 42, more so in Get On Up. That I thought, this dude is legit. This dude is a world-class talent. And I was so happy for that. And I was in that room with you, Curtis. Madhu Vatten writes, I woke up and checked YouTube. I saw your stream and read All Hail the King with a picture of Chadwick. I first thought it was the title for Black Panther 2. And I got really excited. Then I scrolled down and found out we have lost a king, F 2020. I know, it just feels like, just like what else can go wrong this year? It has been one hell of a year. Nearly literally one hell of a year. It's true. And I think I'm going to, I mean, look, I remember exactly where I was when the news came out that Heath Ledger had passed away. I remember exactly where I was. I was at Lionsgate's head offices because they have a screening room. Lionsgate has their own little screening room there. And I had gone there to watch Jason Statham bank heist movie. And so when you go in, you turn your phones off. You know, this is a little press event. There are about 40 of us there. And so the movie ends. And then everyone walks out of the screening room when we're in the foyer and everybody turns their phones back on. And I was one of the last people to walk out of the theater. And when I came out of the theater, I saw like 15 people standing in the foyer just looking at their phones. Let's pretend this is a phone. I saw people staring at their phones and looking around at each other. I'm like, what's going on? Turn my phone on. I'm like, oh, something weird going on, whatever. Turn my phone on and just filled with messages of Heath Ledger died. Heath Ledger was dead. And I'll remember, now I was one of those people in that foyer going, you know? I'll remember where I was when I found out that Chadwick Boseman had died. I was sitting on my couch watching Bill and Ted 3 with my buddy Ryan and my wife. And I had my buddy Soul was the first one to let me know. It was a quick text message. So I looked down at my phone and he had texted me. Where is it? What was it that he exactly texted to me? Yeah. 7:14 p.m. is when I found out. Chadwick Boseman died. That's what my buddy Soul sent me. And then I got more messages from fact checker Jonathan and Dennis Zen and a bunch of other people like texting me. Like it all of a sudden it started coming in rushes. Chadwick Boseman died. And I'll never forget. I think for the rest of my life, much like where I was when I found out Heath Ledger died, I think I will probably always remember where I was when I found out that Chadwick Boseman died. Sitting on that couch in my living room watching Bill and Ted 3. Yeah, anyway. F2020 indeed, my friend. F2020 indeed. Okay, we move on. Darth Wayne writes, I have such a bigger admiration and respect for Chadwick Boseman after today. Guy knew his work meant a lot to a lot of people, and he didn't even let cancer get him to back down. The strength of his soul is incredible. Rest in power, King. Again, like I said, after the shock of it, it was how impressed I was is what hit me. And again, I wish we had an opportunity to express our appreciation while he was still here to receive it, but I really, really respect, and not just him, but the fact that, Disney knew about this. Kevin Feige knew about this, and probably a lot of the people that worked with him knew about this. Big respect to also everybody else who kept this to themselves. They kept this quiet. They respected Chadwick's wishes in this. He wanted it this way. He wanted the story to be about the work and the art, and kudos to him and to everybody who helped keep it secret. Really, really impressed, Darth Wayne. All right. Mighty JT writes, hey, John, no question today. Just wanted to say I appreciate the incredible work you put into every single show and can't wait for the documentary. Oh, thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. And thank you for tipping $20 to support the channel. And what's funny? It was yesterday. I was doing a lot of work. Yesterday was a lot of work. We got a lot of work done on the documentary yesterday. We are right now in the process. And again, listen, let me be clear here, especially on a day that we're talking about a truly gifted artist like Chadwick Boseman. My documentary, which I'm basically making by myself, obviously with the help of my team with fact checker Jonathan and things like that, but by Hollywood standards of true artists like Chadwick Boseman, look, I'm not gonna blow smoke. My documentary is a piece of shit. Okay, let's just be clear. It's a piece of garbage compared to the real work of real artists like Chadwick Boseman. But it is nonetheless something I'm very proud of. It's my project, and I'm very, very proud of it. And I'm very excited to start showing it to people. We're working on. We are just days away from having a preview cut done, so I can start showing it to some test people, and then a long way to go, but that's where we're at. So anyway, Mighty JT, thank you so much for the kind words. I appreciate that very, very much, and I am excited to show when I'm able to show the documentary to everybody. It's a subject matter I'm very interested in, and that I care about, being movie trailers and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, to put it in perspective, I mean, it ain't going to be no Oscar winner. And in the light of somebody like an artist like Chadwick Boseman, total shite compared to the work that Chadwick Boseman does. But I appreciate the support, Mighty JT, very, very much. And I'm excited for you and others to see it when we're ready to go with it. So thank you for that. All right, Damien91486 writes, hey, John, I know it might be too soon to be talking about recasting, but I'm gonna bet Marvel/Disney had to have been briefed on Chadwick's condition. With that being said, I know you don't do X actor and X role, but I think Lakeith Stanfield should carry that torch. I don't care. I don't care. Look, I agree. First of all, it is an interesting thing. You got to understand, Disney has probably known about this for a couple of years. All right. They have probably known about this for a couple of years. So they have had years to start preparing for what they would do after Chadwick was no longer going to be with us. I don't think they're going to share with us what those plans are for a while. As far as which actor should it be, it's the same thing as I always say. I don't care. All I care is get a good, talented actor. Is Lakeith Stanfield a good, talented actor? Yes. But I can also mention a bunch of others. So if it's Lakeith, great. If it's somebody else, great. But again, we'll talk more about that stuff on Monday. I'd rather just focus, at least for today, for a couple of days. Let's focus more on these other things. But yeah, these are legitimate questions to ask, and we'll get more to that on Monday. We'll talk more on Monday about where does the MCU go from here? What's the best idea for them to proceed? How do they manage it in the short term? How do they manage this incredible loss in the long term? But we'll deal with that stuff more on Monday. But hey, listen, if they announced in like a month that they're going to move forward, like listen, by the way, don't laugh. I would not be surprised at all if, since Disney knew about this, I would not be surprised in the least to find out that Chadwick Boseman was a part of those conversations. I wouldn't be surprised in the least to find out that Disney and Chadwick Boseman probably talked about who would be like, what do we do with Black Panther once I'm gone? That sounds like a morbid kind of conversation to have. But I wouldn't be surprised at all if Chadwick Boseman wanted to have those conversations. He helped bring Black Panther to life for people. Black Panther had been around a long time before Chadwick Boseman was playing him, but I mean, he brought him to life on the screen. And I wouldn't doubt at all if Chadwick probably wanted to be a part of those conversations about, okay, what do you guys do with Black Panther once I'm not here to play him anymore? I wouldn't be surprised at all if Chadwick wanted to be a part of those conversations and if Disney and Chadwick didn't have those conversations. So I'm willing to bet money that whatever Disney does with Black Panther and his character moving forward, if they continue with the character, if they recast it, blah, 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 I would bet money that Chadwick Boseman himself was probably a part of that conversation and that Chadwick Boseman himself probably had some input into that. I wouldn't be surprised at all. As to who that actor would be, again, I don't care. Just make it a good, talented actor. World's good. Listen, because when they were making Black Panther, if you had said to the world, hey, what do you guys think about getting the guy who was in 42? Probably most people would have said, no, get some other famous name. But we got Chadwick Boseman. And now we can't imagine Black Panther without him. But I think he probably, I'll bet, like I said, I'll bet money that he was part of that decision-making process. All right, Shekel Money writes, hey, John, I love the movie trailers. I love movie trailers. Me too, man. I'm even making a documentary about it. I was wondering if you know who edited the Batman trailer and how, as a fan, we can know who's doing the trailer to any movie. They don't actually list. You know, listen, there are a lot of creative houses and agencies that specifically work on movie trailers. I'll give you guys a little bit of insight that you find out in my documentary. That, you know, the executive, the marketing executive of a studio will work directly with a creative house, with an agency. Like, we have the people from this great trailer house. It's one of the oldest, most celebrated trailer houses in the world. It's called Aspect. And we had the owners and presidents of Aspect in my documentary to talk a little bit about that. And so you get the movie executives will work with the trailer house and the trailer houses will cut it, but it's not in the credits anywhere, you know? So you can probably find out by watching like the Clio Awards, which company worked on which marketing campaigns and stuff like that. But no, there's no simple, as far as I know, there's no simple little IMDb page you can go to find out, oh, who made the trailer for that movie? I don't think there's a simple way to go and find that stuff out. So who made the trailer? It is most likely a marketing executive at Warner Brothers took the footage, went to one of the trailer houses, said, this is what we're looking, we want a trailer that kind of communicates this, this, and this. And so the trailer house will work with that executive and they'll come up with the trailer. And that's probably, so that's not how it's always done, but that's probably how the Batman one kind of came about. Good question, Shuckle Money. All right, Shuckle Money also writes, also, in a lot of trailers, they use covers or epic versions of famous songs that are doing the covers for themselves. Are they doing the covers themselves? I can't stop watching the Batman trailer, and I love that version of Something in the Way. There's actually, listen, again, I'm giving a little bit of something away from my trailer, from my documentary. There's actually a little section of my documentary specifically talking about that one question. I think sometimes, yes, they do have that version made themselves. They'll buy the rights to the song or a license to the song in order to be able to do it. They'll hire some musicians and they'll do their own cover of the song. Sometimes there are existing covers that they go out and get, but it's probably done both ways. It's a great question. I love that you're asking these questions about trailers. All right, CD2197 writes, I've only just watched the film 42 with Chadwick Boseman 3 days ago, but what a brilliant performance and such a good film. May he rest in peace. He was so good in that. And again, listen, I'm not going to suddenly sit here and lie. I'm not going to pretend that I loved 42. I liked 42, but his performance was great. And then I got to see him in Get On Up, which I thought he was even better in that. And the dude was just a powerhouse. I'm glad you had a chance to watch that while he was still alive and got to appreciate that. CD2197 also writes, will you be playing Shadowlands? Is that the new expansion of World of Warcraft? Unfortunately, the account I've had for the past 11 years has been hacked. Oh, that sucks. But that won't stop me from creating a new one for the Alliance, of course. Love the show and everything you and your crew bring to such dull times. Well, thanks. Let me look that up. Is Shadowlands? Hold a second. I think that's the name. Yes. That is the name of the new expansion. I will probably get... I haven't been playing World of Warcraft for a while. I mean, I think it's been almost a year since I fired it up, I think. But whenever a new expansion comes out, I always start it up again and try out the new expansion. So yes, I probably will. I don't know if I'll play it long, but I probably will fire it up and give it a go. Because I've been playing World of Warcraft for over a decade, man. I mean, God, almost... When did World of Warcraft come out? It's been almost like 20 years. It's almost been like a couple of decades I've been playing this thing. Anyway, thanks a lot for that, man. All right, next up, Django19 writes, let's just take a second to appreciate how dedicated Chadwick Boseman was to the role of Black Panther. He even came up with his own version of the Wakandan accent. I know it's not time to think of recast, but it is, I don't know. But when it is, I don't know if you'll be able to find someone as committed as him. I mean, that's going to be the goal. It's going to be a tough job to find not only somebody as talented as Chadwick Boseman. That's going to be tough in and of itself. But then find somebody who's as committed to the work, who's as committed to the art as he was, who's going to put in the work for the art through the battles he was having anyway. It's going to be a tall order, Django. It's going to be a tall order. All right, Connor writes, since my last message about Cartoon Salon and The Secret of Kells and Song of the Sea, I have now also watched their film, The Breadwinner. I've also not seen Breadwinner. I've seen Kells, but I've not seen Breadwinner. It's an animated movie that takes place in the war-torn Afghanistan. It's on Netflix, and it might be the studio's best. Give me a moment to look this up. What's it called again? The Breadwinner. Let's see. It is a 2017 film. Okay. I am familiar with this film. I'm familiar with this film. I haven't watched it, though, yet myself. I have not watched it, but I am familiar with this because I've seen the trailer and I heard about being in war-torn Afghanistan and stuff like that. If I'm not mistaken, did this not get an Academy Award nomination? Oh, is it nominated for one Oscar? There we go. That's right. It was nominated for Best Animated Feature. That's why I knew about this film. Okay, I haven't seen it, but... thank you for putting this one back on my radar because this is one, I remember when I saw the previews for it, I was like, I want to see that movie. And it fell off my radar and I totally forgot about it. Thank you for putting it back on my radar, Connor, and letting me know it's on Netflix. I'm going to go check this one out because this is one I've been really interested in. So thanks for that. All right. Next up, we've got BWL writes, Obviously, Chadwick dying is the only tragedy. The fact that he was 43 does make it feel more impactful. It absolutely does. There's something a little bit more tragic. Look, when anybody loses their life, it's a tragedy. But when somebody loses it when they only got to live half of it, that does increase the tragedy. It does. And Chadwick Boseman only got to live half of it. Does make it feel more impactful. 2 years older than me. He had stage 3 colon cancer for his entire MCU career. Should make us stop and remember the humanity of celebrities. Absolutely. Absolutely. These people are human beings too. And, you know, Rob has a version of this. Rob says everybody has a story that you just haven't heard yet. I've heard it put another way before, and it's something to always remember. Everybody you meet is fighting a battle that you don't know anything about. Everyone you meet is fighting a battle that you know nothing about. And I was reminded of that saying recently because I had an experience with a person. I won't say who. I had an experience with a person that I didn't really know, and it wasn't a good experience. And I was kind of complaining about it with a mutual friend. And it's like, man, that person, I don't know about that person because blah, blah, blah. And I was kind of painting a picture of this person in my head based on one experience with them when I really didn't know anything about them. Anyway, this mutual friend of ours reminded me of that saying. Hey, listen, dude, everybody's fighting a battle that you don't actually know anything about. So just keep that in mind. I don't know specifically what he was talking about, and I don't know if he knew about anything specific. But it's a saying that came back into my head when I was thinking about Chadwick Boseman. It's like, man, I mean, granted, his was a really big one, but everybody is fighting some kind of really hard battle in their life, whether it's a relationship battle, whether it's a personal struggle, whether it's a career thing, whether it's a financial thing, whether it's an identity thing, whether it's a health thing, whether it's whatever. Everybody you know is fighting a battle that you don't know about. And for Chadwick Boseman, we now know what that was. And now all we are left to do is marvel at the grace in which he fought that battle. Dave Atkins writes, read the tragic news at about 4 a.m. and could not believe it. Oh, Chad will always be my king as far as I'm concerned, and my thoughts, love, and prayers go out to his family. Rest in peace forever, T'Challa. Again, it was such a shock. The shock of it, I think, is what got a lot of people. And because we just did not see it coming. It's so out of left field. It reminds me in a very different way of when we lost Paul Walker. You know, a young guy, just in his early 40s, just all of a sudden, out of nowhere, gone. And I remember I remember where I was where Heath Ledger died. I remember exactly where I was when we found out Paul Walker had died. I was actually sitting at a poker table in Las Vegas. And I was like in between hands. I wasn't in one hand, and I looked down at my phone, and it's like, what? And I said that, like, and people at the table was like, what's going on? And I mentioned, you know, Fast and Furious? Yeah, Paul Walker? He just died. I was like, no. Like, yeah. I just never forget that. Never forget that. All right, thanks for sending that in, Dave. Next up, Miggy B writes, I'm sure many will be mourning the passing of Chadwick. I first saw him in theaters for 42. I think that's where a lot of people first saw him, in theaters at 42. I also feel terrible for complaining about not having a Black Panther 2. Well, it seems he battled for us to bring such amazing movies. We should be thankful. You know what? Here's something interesting to keep in mind. Back at D23, when Kevin Feige was on stage and brought out Ryan Coogler, the director of Black Panther, to talk about Black Panther 2. It is weird to think about this, but they knew Chadwick had stage 3 colon cancer when they were talking about they are now writing Black Panther 2. I don't know if they thought that Chadwick had enough time that they could get in one more movie? I wonder if they knew they couldn't, but they were just letting people know that the character T'Challa, who had come to mean so much to so many people, partially because of Chadwick Boseman, was going to go on. I don't know, but now that I hadn't thought of that till right now. Yeah, when I was at D23 and they had Ryan Coogler there and Kevin Feige talking about we're moving forward with Black Panther 2, they knew that Chadwick Boseman had cancer. And were keeping it to themselves and keeping it secret. But it's interesting. I wonder, if anything, what that means moving forward. It's an interesting thing. Anyway, thank you for writing that in, Miggy. All right, next up. Tyler Yeats writes, absolutely gutted by this. I can't believe he did all those performances while going through that. Rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman, Wakanda forever. A beautifully said tribute there, Tyler Yeats, to join the other tributes you had. Thank you so much for writing that in, man. And I completely concur with what you're saying there. 50 Shades of Geek writes, just when I thought we finally had a month in 2020 without a major disaster, I wake up to find the news of Chadwick Boseman's passing. This is such a great tragedy for film fans. I hope the Wakandan forever is doing okay. I'm not black, but I'm here for you, man. I mean, and I think that speaks to the effectiveness in which Chadwick Boseman played that character, or that he played James Brown, or that he played Jackie Robinson, or Marshall. You know, there's a lot of these themes in all of these films, is that, listen, I am a pasty white dude, but he brought all of these characters to life in such a way and portrayed them in such a way that he helped me as a pasty white dude better understand the issues and struggles that a lot of other people have. And I think for a performer, for an artist, whether it's the actor playing the role or the writer writing the script or the director directing the scenes, for an artist to be able to do that, to make other people who are outside of those demographics, like me, feel it, that's impressive, man. And that was kind of part of the art that he was able to do. So thanks for that, 50 Shades. All right, Donnie Yasu writes, rest in power to Chadwick Boseman. Disbelief and tears today. The portal scene with the Wakandan trio entering. Oh, yeah, man. With the Wakandan trio entering will hit harder now. It absolutely will. Saw a pic today of Chadwick signing Black Panther Funkos for a child with cancer. He seemed like an amazing person. You know what? I had a number of people. I showed you guys that one picture I put up of Boseman Forever. I had a few people send me screenshots of that scene in Portals with Chadwick Boseman coming through. And yeah, I think the next time all of us watch Endgame and that scene comes, the next time Disney does an in theater, like they put Endgame back in theaters for special screenings, whatever. Oh my God. Can you imagine the cheers? I mean, that's a movie filled with cheers in the audience, but can you imagine when that moment comes, when the portal opens up and Chadwick Boseman comes walking through the thing, you're going to go deaf. You're going to go deaf. I guarantee it. The outpouring of emotion and adulation and celebration that's going to come out of audiences the next time that movie plays in theaters and that scene comes, you are going to go deaf. Bring some earplugs, not to block it out, because you'll still hear it. Trust me, even with the best earplugs in the world, you still hear it. It's going to be loud, man. It's going to be loud. All right. Anonymous viewer writes in, rest in power, Chadwick Boseman, tears and disbelief. Oh, Donnie Yasu wrote it so well. He wrote it twice just to make sure it came through. Got it. Thank you so much for that, Donnie. All right. Anonymous viewer writes, awful news about Chadwick Boseman, his performance in Defy Blood. But yeah, we haven't even talked about his performance in Defy Bloods, which was great. Was one of the best of the year for me. He had so much more to give, but will live on as a hero to many. Rest in peace. Yeah. I mean, and by the way, Delroy Lindo, I'm sure, listen, I think Delroy Lindo, whenever we have another Oscars, Delroy Lindo is going to get nominated for an acting Oscar for that. And when he does, you're going to hear him talk a lot about his work with Chadwick Boseman in that. You're going to hear a lot of talk about it. And that was another great performance from him. Thank you for bringing that up, man. Tim Platt writes, As a black man, this year was already incredibly difficult. The loss of Chadwick Boseman just compounds things, as he truly was a hero both on and off screen. My sincere condolences go out to his family and prayers for their peace and comfort. That was one of two. I hope they can take solace in knowing that he was an inspiration whose legacy will have a lasting impact on generations to come. Well said. Helping people take pride in who they are and where they come from is one of the greatest things a person can do. Tim, that's seriously the most on point thing I think any of us, including me, has said today. Let me read that again. Helping other people take pride in who they are and where they come from is one of the greatest things you can do. Helping somebody feel pride is one of the greatest gifts you can ever give to somebody. And that's something that I was never able to really articulate, that I saw when Black Panther was coming out and had its opening weekend, was the emoting from a lot of people online and articles I would read and editorials done particularly by Black people expressing that. I mean, that is a gift. Again, it's my experience of seeing an MMA fighter who was Italian. That's just a shadow of what that was. And that he was able to participate and be a part of that gift to so many people speaks such volumes. It's incredible. Well said, Tim. Well said. All right. Mischievous Gremlin writes, John, this is a very sad day. I don't care what anybody says. Chadwick Boseman was a fighter, a legend, and a king. It really is a shame that we lost another great actor before his time as King T'Challa, and death is not the end. R.I.P. Chadwick Boseman. It's true. And again, you know, the immensity of his talent really only intensifies the tragedy that we were only just starting to see his career. You know, it had only been in the last 10 years that he had really started to make his mark. And he had just come into superstardom. Just now he had just come into superstardom. And when you think about all the incredible art that he was going to be able to give to the world in the years to come that we have now lost, it just adds to that. It adds to that. Thank you for sharing that. Geekpool writes, greetings from your homeland, John, which is of course Canada. In recent events, if you were Feige, do you recast Chadwick Boseman or rewrite Black Panther as a different character, becoming the Black Panther, like Black Panther's sister Shuri or one of his Wakandan allies? Again, we'll talk more about this on Monday, but my overall philosophy of this is not a secret. You recast Black Panther. You don't do it tomorrow. You don't do it this year. But I think you carry on. Look, T'Challa was around long before Chadwick Boseman was acting. This is too important culture. I'm not even just talking about to the MCU. Culturally, it is too important of a character. And culturally, what Chadwick Boseman helped do to make this such a relevant and important character that means so much to so many people, I think Chadwick Boseman would spit at the idea of now not continuing on King T'Challa. Again, we'll talk more about this on Monday, but I believe you take your what I think right now what Disney will do is they will take their time and then ultimately announce who is going to take over for Chadwick Boseman in his stead moving forward. And again, I'm not going to be surprised at all, since Chadwick's known about this year. I bet you Chadwick even had input on this. I bet you Chadwick even had a say on who comes up and takes up the mantle for him. But again, we'll talk more about that on Monday. It's a logical question to ask, Pool. Good question to ask. Personally, I think they move forward with T'Challa, but we'll talk more about that on Monday. All right, Chris J. Warden writes, 2020 can officially go screw itself, no doubt. R.I.P. Chadwick Boseman. Also, I know it's way too early, but I think both Boseman and his family would want Black Panther's story to continue on, even though he's gone. I kind of like what they did with Spartacus. And of course, same thing happened with Spartacus. Is of course during Spartacus, who was played brilliantly by Andy Whitfield, got sick, unfortunately died, and they carried on. You know, it was the biggest thing Andy had done in his career, And that show was a big success, partially because of Andy. And the best way to honor him was to continue on with that show. And of course, Erin Cummings can speak to that because Erin played Andy's wife. She played Spartacus's wife in the show Spartacus. She speaks to that sometimes too. But I agree. I don't know for a fact what they will or won't do. And I'm sure a lot of thought and consideration has gone into and will go into what they plan to do moving forward. But I agree, Chris. I think that is what they will do. I don't know that, but I think that's what they'll do. We'll see. All right. The Wonder One writes, with everything going on right now, this news really hit hard because I can't even escape the harsh realities of this year by watching a Marvel movie anymore. Being originally from Africa, Black Panther gave me so much pride, and I'm happy we'll always have that. Well said, dude. And again, I think you're saying what a lot of people, I think you're speaking on behalf of a lot of people when you say that. Such a culturally important character, what he was able to do, how he was really able to truly, I mean, look, the MCU in spirit, it was always meant for everybody. What movies like Captain Marvel and Black Panther and Shang-Chi and others to come, really, they makes a statement. These comic book movies, this world, this MCU, whether it's DC or MCU or whatever, these comic book movies, this comic book fandom is for all of us. It's for all of us. And I think Black Panther was a big statement in that. And I think it will continue to be. So thank you for sharing those thoughts, dude. All right. Marley V writes, great to see you, John. Thank you so much. Off top, R.I.P. Chadwick Boseman, for sure an entertainment icon and a tremendous human being. But did you see the magazine cover that promoted Dune? I'm most excited to see Rebecca Ferguson portray Lady Jessica. Yes, I did. Hold on a second. Let me bring this up. Let me see if I can find it here. Where is it? I think I found it because I think it was for Empire, right? Yeah, there it is. For those of you who know what we're talking about, here it is. Woo! Oh, Dune! Woo! Spaceships, spice, and sand worlds. I mean, sandworms, I mean. Oh, you get a look at the Fremen. Ah! Man, and I'll tell you what. I don't mind celebrating the movies today on the day we're talking about Chadwick Boseman, because Chadwick Boseman, for the past 10 years, has helped deepen my love of movies. So I don't feel at all inappropriate about celebrating movies and celebrating the thing that he spent a good part of his life helping us to celebrate. And so I don't mind telling you that thanks to Chadwick Boseman, I am a bigger movie fan than I even was before. And as a result of Chadwick Boseman's career in life, making me an even bigger movie fan, I gotta tell you, woo, seeing these images put a smile on my face, my friends. Seeing these images put a smile on my face. Oh my God, I cannot wait. I cannot wait for Dune. Woo! I cannot wait for Dune. Anyway, thank you for sharing that, Marlene. Yes, that just looks damn badass. Okay, let's keep going here. Preston the Kryptonian writes, man, John got blindsided by this news, as did we all, Preston. I didn't even know Chadwick had colon cancer. Truly devastating. My thoughts and prayers go out to his coworkers, friends, and family. Wakanda forever. Hope you are doing well. I am doing well personally, but yeah, again, Preston, you're absolutely right. Devastating news. Caught us all by surprise. And what a testimony it is to him. Sam Fisher writes, do you think Boseman could win a Best Actor Oscar for The Five Bloods? I don't think so. But again, it really all depends on when the next Oscars are. I think if anyone is going to win an acting award for Da 5 Bloods, I think it is Delroy Lindo. Chadwick Boseman was great in a supporting role. And I suppose there would be a possibility that he could get a supporting actor nomination, depending on when the Oscars happen. I'm not going to say it's out of the realm of possibility, but I think the one big standout performance, the one, so just so we're not rewriting history, when when Da 5 Bloods came out, the performance everybody was really talking about was Delroy Lindo's, right? And he was like ridiculously good in that. So I think a lot of the tension will be there. But yeah, as a supporting performance, Chadwick Boseman was great. It was more Delroy's movie, but his supporting performance was great. So it's possible. It's possible. All right, Sam Fisher writes, one of two. I know it's way too soon to be talking about this, but what is Marvel's next step? Hey, it's a logical question to ask, man. Again, I think the fact that we're asking that question is a testimony to the impact that Chadwick Boseman had on this industry. Anyway, I know it's too soon to be talking about this, but what is Marvel's next step? They still want to come out with Black Panther 2, but their lead is passed. Do they recast? Do they give T'Challa off screen? Do they kill T'Challa off screen and give the mantle to Shuri like in the comics? Or do they recast the role? Boseman embodied that role so well. He was always my first choice to play the role, and I cannot think of a justification in the universe unless they don't address it, like with Hulk or Rhodey. There is a third part. But the new guy is also going to be compared to Boseman. Like, how would he have played the role? What would he have done? And using a face replacement seems totally impractical. Yeah, face replacement like what they did. No, that's not what they're going to do. Especially when you're replacing your lead. Listen, I think the logical thing here to do is to recast. I think they've known for years about this. I think they will recast. And listen, look, you're going to face this with anytime you need to change roles, but the audience adjusts. Like I said, when they had to change out Dumbledore, the audience just adjusted, right? We knew. We understood. We didn't have to have our hands held. We got it. And of course, there's going to be some comparing to, how would have Chadwick have performed that? Sure, but that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing or a wrong thing. That's totally fine. Just like when we got like people asking, like when Jared Leto is playing Joker, how would Heath have done it? Or when Joaquin Phoenix played it, like how would have Heath had played it? Sure, that's fine, but that's okay. That's art. That's life. So yeah, I personally, I think the right thing to do is to recast the role sometime. I think you're going to see the MCU pause on Black Panther. You're not going to hear anything about it for a little bit. And then what I think will happen was that they'll recast. The character's too important. He's just such a cultural icon, the character. And again, like, my feeling on this overall issue is like, hey, when Stan Lee died, nobody said, stop making Spider-Man movies. Stop making Avengers movies. Don't do that anymore. The creator of these characters is now gone. We can't make their movies anymore. I don't think that's honoring the legacy of I don't think that would have been honoring the legacy of what Stan Lee did. And in the same way, Chadwick Boseman got to play this character, and I don't think you're honoring his work in bringing this character to life for us by now getting rid of the character. And saying, no, now T'Challa's not here anymore. Now it's somebody else. It's not T'Challa anymore. I don't think that's how you honor the work that the artist did. Nobody said don't make more Harry Potter movies. Nobody said stop making Marvel movies after Stan Lee died. Because we know that's not how you honor them. You recognize the importance culturally of these characters. You recognize the contributions that those who have passed have made to those things, and you commit to carrying on their work. That's how you honor them. Anyway, that's just my take. But again, we'll talk more about that on Monday. All right, Ethan Bryant writes, just yesterday I visited my attic and found a Black Panther poster. I bought it in 2018 but never hung it up. I started unrolling it thinking this was the day but decided against it. A few hours later, this news broke and I put it up shortly thereafter. Yeah, listen, dude, I very enthusiastically went out and got this Hasbro Legends series Black Panther. Anne picked this one up for me because she was still at Hasbro at the time. Very, very quickly, as soon as it became available. And I had always thought I'm gonna unbox it. I'm going to put it up somewhere on my display, but I never really did. It just kind of sat there. And I've got a lot of those. I'm guilty of a lot of those things that I have back here that I've always meant to properly display, never got around to. And I remember last night I came upstairs and I pulled that box out. I'm like, I'm going to display this now. And so I'm right there with you, Ethan. I'm right there with you, as I'm sure a lot of people are. Okay. An anonymous viewer writes, I can't believe Boseman is gone. Wakanda forever. Absolutely, man. Quinn Z writes, which performance of Black Panther was your favorite from Chadwick? Rest in peace, King. Whoo, it's hard to say. Look, because when we saw him in Civil War, it was the first time we didn't know. How would this T'Challa come across, right? How would he be? What would he be like? And it made such an impact because it was our first time seeing him. He gave a better performance in Black Panther, but I now knew what to expect from his performance in Black Panther, So I'd say the better performance was in Black Panther, but the one that made the biggest impact on me was in Civil War because it was my first exposure to him, right? And I can't remember the exact line, but he's talking to Captain America in the car, and he's like, so tell me, Captain, as a warrior and king, like, what can you do to protect him from me? Or something. It was like a line like that. I'm like, oh, this guy's so badass. Like, so better performance was probably Black Panther. But the bigger impact on one for me was Civil War. Jerry Long writes, R.I.P. Chadwick Boseman. Do you remember Marvel never announced Black Panther 2 release date during the Phase 4 lineup? Well, there's a lot of movies that they never announced release dates for. Like, for instance, we know that there is a Blade movie coming. They announced that at Comic-Con, but they didn't actually announce a release date, right? So it's not like that unusual. Do you remember they never announced a release date during the Phase 4 lineup? Perhaps they knew his health condition. What do you think Marvel will do going forward with this character? What would be appropriate? Again, we'll go more in depth on that, Jerry, on Monday, but it's a totally logical question to ask. And again, it's a testimony to the impact that Chadwick Boseman had that it makes us ask these questions. Yes, they knew. I think they knew. They've known for years. I think they've known for years about this, and they have probably made their plans about it. And I think they knew. I would love to get on the phone with Kevin Feige right now. Let's be clear. I do not have Kevin Feige's phone number. I would love to get on the phone with Kevin Feige right now and ask him, hey, yo, like at D23, I think it was D23, when you had Chadwick Boseman or Ryan Coogler come out on stage and you talked about Black Panther 2. I mean, clearly you already knew about Chadwick's condition, but did you know you weren't going to be able to actually make Black Panther 2 with Chadwick Boseman? Did you know that already? Or did you think we might be able to get another one in there with Chadwick before he can't do films anymore? That's the one I'm going to be interested to find out. As far as what do I think they're going to do next? How do I think they're going to approach it next? We'll save that more for Monday. Tune in. Me and Rob will go more in depth on that. But yeah, they knew. And I think that's really interesting. So let's see where they went. And again, like I said, I'm willing to bet money that Chadwick himself was probably part of the conversations and probably had real input as to what do you do with Black Panther once I can't play him anymore. I bet you anything he had a say in that. I bet you anything they gave him input on that and that he wanted input on that. So, but we'll find out. I don't know that for sure. Thanks for that, Jerry. Donnie writes, it was hard as is to hold back my tears when he steps out of the portal in Endgame. From now on, much, much harder. Absolutely agree. This one really hurts. Hashtag Boseman forever. Totally agree. And again, I think the reaction we're all going to have, I haven't watched the portal scene since finding out that Chadwick had passed, but I know when I do, I'm going to look like a sobbering idiot. That's totally going to be me. It's totally going to be me. All right. Next up, Joe writes, his not telling the world about his cancer reminds me of Freddie Mercury. He was a true hero by filming all those movies while being sick. Absolutely. knowing his condition, he went on, made 21 Bridges. He did the 5 Bloods. You know, he worked on all these things. It's amazing that he still did that. He did all the press stuff. He kept the focus on the art and on the work. Just an incredible thing, Joe. All right, Simon Blakemore writes, one of two. Hi, John. How's it going? It's going well, thank you. I think as movie fans, we don't realize sometimes what impact certain movie roles have on people until we lose that person. Absolutely, 100%, Simon. Who played that role. And Chadwick Boseman was one of those people who impact a lot of people to make them the best version of themselves. And I think to continue his legacy, we must keep pushing to be the best versions of ourselves. I completely agree. That's 100% true. We don't really appreciate. I know I didn't. I already knew. I was a big Chadwick Boseman fan. And I knew, hey, man, him playing T'Challa is a big deal and it's important to a lot of people. But, man, when he was gone, suddenly you realize, oh, man, it was so much more than I even remember. It's so much more than I even remember. And so I think you're absolutely right about Simon. I really do. I think you're absolutely right about that. All right. Sam Fisher writes, I'll repost my thoughts about what to do now on Monday. Absolutely. Come back on Monday. We'll talk. Listen, and again, I don't think it's disrespectful to ask these questions. Again, I think it is a testimony to how important Chadwick Boseman was and how impactful his work was that we are left to ask these questions about, oh my God, what does the MCU do now? Where do we go from here? I don't think that's disrespectful. I think that is a testimony. But again, a conversation's best left for a couple of days from now. Let's give it a couple of days, and on Monday we'll go more in depth. So thanks for that, Sam. All right, Miles writes, hey, I was wondering if you had watched Lucifer Season 5 yet. Oh, damn right I have. And if so, what did you think? Love the show. Take care. Stay safe. Well, I mean, let me be more specific. I have seen the first half of Season 5. Because they only dropped the first 8 episodes. The next 8 episodes are coming in a while. I don't know exactly when they're dropping the next 8 episodes. But I've seen half of it. Loved it, Miles. Absolutely loved it. I ate it up. Again, my favorite episode, one of my top 3 episodes of the whole series so far, was that episode when all the guys were at home babysitting and all the girls went out to the club. One of the best lines ever is the detective says to the doctor, don't forget, this is a sting. Oh, I thought you said vodka. If you've seen the episode, you know that line was gold. If you haven't seen the episode, what I just said probably doesn't make much sense, but I absolutely loved it, Miles. I cannot wait for the next 8 episodes. I seriously can't. All right, John Mendez writes, it's a sad and ironic that I wasn't able to watch Black Panther when it first premiered in theaters because I was undergoing chemotherapy for testicular cancer. I'm amazed and heartbroken at hearing of Chadwick Boseman's battle. First of all, dude, thanks for sharing that. And yeah, I mean, that's got to add for somebody like you. There's a real personal connection that you yourself were battling something similar and that you missed out on the original theatrical release because of that. And now finding out that he passed of cancer as well. And it's going to add for you, I'm sure, the notion you'll never forget this. And it is sad and it's unfortunate and all that kind of stuff. And I think few people are going to be able to appreciate that as much as you can because of your connection to that. So thank you for sharing that, man. I really appreciate that. All right. Major Tom writes, where are we at? Hold a second. Give me 1 minute here. Hold a second. Sorry, guys. Just one quick little technical thing I got to try to fix. Don't you do love it? And we're sorry, guys. We're getting on hour 3 here. We're getting on hour 3. So give me. I just got to update a couple of things here. Anyway, I'll worry about that in just a minute. Anyway, sorry. Major Tom writes, hey, John, even if he didn't have cancer, Chadwick Boseman wasn't going to play Black Panther forever. What he did was not just bring a culturally important character to life, but he kicked open the door for others to take his place as T'Challa. Absolutely, Major Tom. Absolutely. And I had never seen Chadwick Boseman in a movie before Black Panther, but I could tell that this guy was eventually going to be one of the greats like Denzel Washington. What he gave us in the time that he had was outstanding way too soon. And I agree. And listen, by the way, if you guys have not seen, let me just get this up here. But if you guys have not seen 42, if you guys have not seen Get On Up, if you guys have not seen Marshall, you must go and watch these things. Not just because they're good movies, but you see him bringing these real life characters to life in such an incredible and diverse way. Like what he did in Get On Up was so different than what he did in 42, which was so different than how he played in Marshall. It's unbelievable. He was a gift. He was a gift. And you guys need to take advantage of this situation and go and watch these performances of his. An anonymous viewer just tips in $7. Thank you so much, anonymous viewer. Tim Platt writes, do you ever go back and rewatch trailers for movies you've already seen? Absolutely, I do. 100%. For me, I love the trailers for Infinity War and Force Awakens. I still get chills watching them. I 100% do. I love trailers. I love trailers. That's part of the reason why I'm doing my little documentary on trailers right now. I absolutely love them, and I absolutely do partially because I go back to watch trailers to see how much did this trailer really reflect the movie. You know, I often do that, but absolutely, I often go back and to get those chills. It's amazing. I love it, and I 100% do that, Tim. I 100% do. I'm glad you do too. I'm glad to know I'm not the only one. All right, Israel King writes, hey, John, I have currently been watching all of the Harry Potter movies for the first time, a movie a week. Nice. Tomorrow I'm watching The Deathly Hallows. I'm guessing The Deathly Hallows Part 1. My question is, should I watch Deathly Hallows Part 1 and 2 back to back, or should I watch them separately? I would say if you are in a pattern right now of watching, just doing this one movie a week thing, follow that. Treat them as two different movies. They were one book, but it was a massive book. They are two different movies. So I would say if you've been following that pattern, continue the pattern and watch Deathly Hallows Part 2 on its own. Now look, I'm not the world's biggest, I'm not a Potterhead by any stretch of the imagination, but I do appreciate the Harry Potter movies. I do enjoy them. And Deathly Hallows Part 2 probably is my favorite. It's probably my favorite of them, but I would watch them if you're doing the one a week thing, King Israel, continue on with your one a week thing. And I hope you do enjoy the rest of the way, my friend. All right, next up, Derek writes, hey, John, I don't know if you know this, but since Cineplex is open in Winnipeg now, where I am, Cineplex just recently announced that a Winnipeg man is attempting to break the world record for viewing the same movie over and over. He plans on seeing Tenet. I'm very curious if he can do it. And since Cineplex is doing such a good job keeping us safe, at least in Winnipeg from what I've seen, I wish him the best. What are your thoughts? I believe the record he is trying to do is seeing it 120 times. Yeah, I remember it wasn't long ago that we did a story where we talked about somebody. What movie was it? I think it was a comic book film. It might have been Wonder Woman. It might have been Wonder Woman. I think the current record holder for watching the movie the most in theater was Wonder Woman. And it was just broken recently. I believe that was it. Man, I don't know. I do hope this. Tenet is a long movie because isn't Tenet like over 2.5 hours or right around 2.5 hours? Hold on a second. Tenet runtime. Tenet is 2 hours and 31 minutes long. So that means if this was a 2-hour movie and he's trying to watch it 120 times, then that extra 30 minutes is going to add 60 hours. 60 hours that extra 30 minutes adds to how much he has. I hope he saw Tenet once and knows that he likes it. Because if he's trying to plan on doing this and he hadn't seen Tenet yet, man, I hope he doesn't hate the movie because then he's in for an uphill climb. But hey, God bless him, man. God bless him. All right, James Argento writes, we're over 3 hours, guys. My voice is starting to go. 2022 is now the official year of the comic book multiverse movies, with Doctor Strange 2, possibly Flash, with multiple Batmans. Over under 10% we get an actor reprising a role from a non-MCU Marvel film, since Feige produced most of them in Doctor Strange 2. Well, I mean, look, we already know he's going to be doing Daredevil. right? It's not going to be Charlie Cox. It's not going to be the Netflix Daredevil. We already know we're getting Daredevil. We already know we're getting X-Men at some point. So we know, but does it come in 2022? I don't know. Kevin Feige said he had his 5-year plan. In 2018, he said he already had his 5-year plan. So that would technically mean we shouldn't see any of those characters till 2023. But if you're setting the over-under at 10%, I would go over 10%. Yeah, that buy. Listen, I don't think it'll be 2022, but there's definitely a higher than 10% chance that we get an X-Men character in the MCU by the end of 2022. I'm not saying it's likely, but I will take the over 10%. All right. William Powell writes, John, with Walter Hamada, where is the power structure does he fall? I know the Snyder content decisions came from AT&T/Warner Max. Is he only in charge of WB films? Everything DC related on the movie screen goes through Walter Hamada. Everything that goes onto the big screen that's DC related goes through Walter Hamada. Obviously, Walter has his bosses, much like Kevin Feige has his bosses, right? Alan Horn is Kevin Feige's boss. And Alan Horn has a boss in Bob Chapek. And Bob Chapek has a boss in Bob Iger. Bob Iger is Bob Chapek's boss. Bob Chapek is Alan Horn's boss. Alan Horn is Kevin Feige's boss. Hamada has his bosses. But even though he has bosses, everything that goes on in the MCU and in Marvel films goes through Kevin Feige now. And everything that's going on a big screen in the DC realm goes through Walter Hamada. So yeah, Walter Hamada was a part to do with that. Walter Hamada has part to do with that. All right. Let's see here. My voice is almost gone, but I think I can do the next 3. John, you should check out Ready Player One on Audible. The movie is great, but so is the book. Dungeons and Dragons, The Tomb of Hours, War Games, The Holy Grail, and the band Rush plays a big role in the book. I know I already have it because Anne wanted to listen to the audiobook, so we bought it on my Audible account. So I've got it on my Audible account. So at some point, HV3, I will definitely go in there and listen to the book because I hear it's great. I hear it's a great book, but I love the movie. All right, Johnny Wiener writes, I know I'll remember Chadwick Boseman for his role as Black Panther mostly, but to me, I first recognized him as Jackie Robinson. When I was in middle school, we took a field trip to the theaters, and the movie we watched was 42. R.I.P. Boseman forever. Yeah, absolutely. You know what? And Harrison Ford was pretty good in that movie, too. You always forget that he was in there. But yeah, that's the one that introduced him to a lot of the world was 42. And you realize, wow, this kid's good, man. And then it was when I saw him in Get On Up that I was like, okay, that wasn't just a fluke. And this dude is legitly mega talented. And that's why I got excited that he got cast to play Black Panther. And so thanks for sharing that memory, Johnny. I appreciate that, man. All right, guys, listen. I'm just about done. I almost can't speak anymore, but I'm going to go through these last ones quickly. Forgive me for going through your questions quickly if you're one of these last ones, but I want to make sure we at least touch on them. So ZMG Ruler writes, RIP Chadwick Boseman, happy to donate to the cause. So far, it does look like AT&T got a better investment with Warner than Disney did with Fox. I don't think 20th Century films have been able to be profitable for Disney, as with Warner, AT&T seem to be in the money. Look, I'll just say this briefly. That's a misunderstanding of why Disney bought Fox. Disney didn't buy Fox for the new movies they're putting out in 2021 and 2022. That's not why they bought Fox. They bought them for the library. 80% of why Disney bought Fox has to do with Disney Plus and Hulu. That's 80% of why they bought that. There's this big misconception that people think, oh, they bought Fox so they could have X-Men. They didn't give a shit about X-Men. Don't get me wrong. They're glad to have them, but you don't spend $70 billion so you can get X-Men. Not so you can get X-Men or any single movie franchise. Disney's play in buying Fox was a long-term play. That doesn't mean they don't expect 20th Century to perform in theaters when they do, but they weren't thinking about, oh, what are we getting in the movie theaters in 2020 and 2021? That wasn't Disney's concern. They are playing a long game, and most of it has to do with library and IP. That's why they spent $70 billion to buy it. So don't go judging 60, 70, 80 billion dollar deals by what happens in the first 2 years. That means nothing. Here's hoping AT&T can reap benefits for years to come with their purchase, and Disney for years to come with theirs. But don't be distracted by what's happening right now. That's just nothing. They don't care. They don't care. I mean, obviously they want things to work, but 80 to 85% of why they bought Fox has to do with stuff that we haven't even seen yet. It's about IP, it's about library, it's about Disney Plus, and it's about Hulu. And believe me, it's a 20-year plan. It's not like, oh, what movies do we get in the first year or two? That had nothing to do with it. All right. I almost can't speak. Sorry, guys. Olenti writes, Black Panther was an experience for me and my family. It was a joy to see an all-black cast in a major superhero film. Chadwick Boseman was perfectly cast as the King of Wakanda. He exuded class, and my condolences go out to his loved ones. Rest in paradise. Thank you so much for sharing that, man, and I completely agree. My Broken Heart writes, when I found out about the passing, I just got done watching Draft Day. Draft Day. I forgot about that. That's right. Didn't have a big role, but when his character gets drafted at the end, I always get emotional. Now it hits harder. In the words of the King, I'm not ready to be without you. R.I.P. the King. Well said, Broken. And thanks for reminding us of Draft Day as well. Mantrafoya writes, I never yielded. As you can see, I am not dead. Chadwick Boseman doesn't know how right he was. He's now eternal. It fills me with wonder how much said and unsaid between him and colleagues. His battle with cancer influenced the character and line nuances. Yeah, like, I don't know. I don't think he knew about his condition when he got cast. I'd have to do a timeline. But I think the timeline is, I don't think he knew when he got cast, but or even if he knew when they were filming. I have to go back to see how long ago he was filming. But that's a really interesting thing to bring up, man. You could be very right about that. All right. Excellent. Last question of the day, because I simply don't have anything left. It's super hot today, writes, Black Panther is scheduled for May 2022. What are the chances that they have already casted his replacement just in case? R.I.P. King. Again, I think, number one, I think Black Panther 2 gets delayed. We'll talk more about this on Monday. I think Black Panther 2 gets delayed. But I believe since they've all known for so long about this, I think they already know who's taking over for Chadwick. I think they now know who's going to be picking up the ball for Chadwick. And I believe, again, I have no insider information. This is just me speculating here. I believe Chadwick probably had a say in that. I believe Disney, Kevin Feige, and Chadwick have probably discussed this probably a bunch over the last year or two. But I won't be surprised at all that 2022 date gets delayed. I would guess that they already know who's going to take over for Chadwick. But I also still think, I don't think 2022 we're going to get a Black Panther 2. I don't think we're going to get Black Panther 2 in 2022. I think they're going to take a little more time. But we'll see. We'll see. All right, guys. That will do it for this installment of Open Mic. Thank you guys so much for all of you sending in your thoughts, all your questions about everything else as well. I may not sound like it, but I had a lot of fun today celebrating an incredible career, short-lived as it was, with work done by an artist that we are going to get to enjoy for the rest of our lives. And there's something to celebrate in that as well. And I've really enjoyed being able to reflect on this career that Chadwick Boseman has had, the incredible work that he's given us, the legacy that he leaves. and a little bit of wondering of where things go from here. So thank you guys for making this show a part of your day. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of your day. And make sure you come back and join us on Monday. We'll talk a little bit more about what does Disney do now? What does the MCU do now? How do you react to such a huge loss like this if you are them right now? We'll talk a little bit about that more on Monday and more. Make sure you guys come back and join us then. Guys, I hope you all have a wonderful weekend in front of you. Say I love you to some people who are close to you that you know and that you love and that you appreciate. It's always good. And guys, please do the 4 main things. Please stay smart, stay safe, take care of yourselves, and please take care of the people around you. Thanks a lot for being here today, guys. My name is John Campea, and until next time, my friends, Boseman forever.